Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday edition. It is already the 14th day of October, 2013. We're going to be live here for the next 3 hours. It is times like these that I really, quite frankly, have trouble even doing the radio show. And there have been very few times in my 18 years on air that I have had trouble coming on air and even trying to break down what's happening because it's all so over the top, awe-inspiring in a bad kind of way. The fact that society is degenerating so quickly, the fact that the general public has no bearings on average and has been brought up by television, and that our entire culture is becoming a fantasy land of narcissistic, dumbed-down mental patients running around, clicking and fiddling with their iPads and iPhones. And I'm not trying to be negative when I say that. It's just that it's true. There is a mass of people who are basically walking dead. They're zombies. And then you've got the overlords, the twisted social engineers who are greasing the skids for all of the horrible things that are happening in society. They're not even behind some of it, quite a bit of it, but they certainly set up businesses and systems to capture all of the flailing lemmings that fall into their web. And then at the same time, the globalists are targeting anyone virtuous, truthful, good, wholesome, honest, loving, compassionate, beautiful, honorable. It really is evil. I mean, we don't know why all this is happening. There is just pure evil. There are systems of evil. And we're going to be breaking that down today. Obviously, you saw in Louisiana the EBT, electronic federal food stamp credit cards. They're credit cards. The American people have to pay for it. Workers have to pay for it. Your children will pay for it. I will pay for it. Anyone who works and pays the exorbitant taxes will pay for it. Suddenly, the cards all over the country weren't working in many areas of the nation, nationwide, as CBS reported. And then suddenly, they went from saying zero to saying unlimited. So folks at multiple Walmarts in Louisiana, that's where the Walmartians graze, suddenly they went completely crazy and began just filling their shopping carts with whatever they could get in them that's covered by EBT food and things like that. And got away with just a massive amount of GMO food and other chemical and bioweapons masquerading as food at Walmart. So they got away with their soft kill meals. And then the police had to show up and stop everybody, explaining, no, there's a malfunction. But that's separate, what happened in Louisiana in 2 cities. From coast to coast, EBT cards stopped working for a day over the weekend. On, I guess, Saturday. And it caused panic and freakouts all over the nation. I believe, as Rob Dew said to me this morning, I agree with him, I believe this is probably a test. The globalists are scientific in their approach in every way. This is a test to see what will happen. You know, they're having that drill that starts in November for shutting down the power on the East Coast and martial law. All of this has been set up for over a year, set up for during the default, during the debt crisis, all of it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is Monday, the 14th day of October, 2013. We'll be live here for the next 3 hours, Lord willing. We have the active duty serviceman from Fort Hood, the officer joining us who was arrested for going on a hike with his son in the countryside with an M4. He is facing criminal charges and is going to trial. We're going to have him on. Of course, his case became national news when it first happened. He's going to be joining us for about 30 minutes via Skype in the next hour, in the third hour. And then we're also going to look at another gentleman being persecuted, not allowed to have a Kickstarter program because it was promoting the Second Amendment. We're seeing massive discrimination against anyone that promotes American ideals or values. We're also seeing the Democratic Party officially fundraise. I'm going to get into that after I cover the EBT shutdown and Walmart looting, you could call it. But first off, I want to break down the fact that at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to get into this article that's up on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com on the front page from last night. Anthony Gucciardi wrote the story. Radio host Michael Savage calls for answers over missing nuke report. And it's a 16-minute segment where Savage breaks it down. It's invaluable listening from Dr. Savage because he's a really smart guy, obviously, and can really condense things down simply, but also complexly at the same time to explain why it's so important. So it takes me an hour to break down why this nuke story is so important, the missing nuke story. Savage does it in 16 minutes. That article with that video and audio is up on Infowars.com. Now, remember, there were missing nukes in 2007. It was a big national scandal. Our source, that's high level, said that quite a few nukes on multiple trucks left the base that weren't even supposed to be at the base, and there was a big deal about it because the paperwork wasn't there. There was no paperwork, and the base commander ordered it. I came out and said, maybe it's a drill, maybe they're dummy warheads, we don't know, our source doesn't know, they were told they were real, we need to get answers. The Air Force Base never responded. Media Matters, run by the White House, and all the usual suspects have not come out and made fun of me for the report and said it's a lie. By the way, I wish they would. I don't want this stuff to be true or accurate, okay? Because the different scenarios involving it run from bad to worse. And when this happened back in September 3rd, and I covered it off and on for a week, and it kind of faded away, I was like, oh, great. Maybe it's no big deal. Everything's fine. Just some secret operation. I mean, but my gut told me, danger, 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 Spidey sense, danger, Will Robinson. In fact, my gut is so freaked out about it that I'm not enjoying doing my radio show anymore. I mean, that's really all I can say. I can't put up with any crap anymore from anybody. I can't get into petty stuff with people anymore. I mean, it's very painful being so serious. And it's very painful seeing a nation of people that act like lobotomized children. And I don't say that from an elitist perspective. I just see people obsessing over football and obsessing over narcissism and all the rest of it. And then I live in the real world where they put cancer viruses and all the major vaccines on record, deadly fluoride in the water on record, GMOs that kill the rats they feed them to at massive numbers. I mean, I'm just living in the Twilight Zone episode, and I realize it. And I'm not on some high horse either. I just can't believe that the general public is so pathetic. On average. There are a lot of wonderful people out there, a lot better than I, but they don't see themselves as leaders and they don't take action. Where is the media? I mean, if the story isn't true about the nukes, then it should come out and I should be excoriated, or my source should be exposed as being wrong, and that's the way this should work. Instead, no one will talk about it a month in. And then I learned the day we reported this, hours later they fired the top #2 nuke commander in the country. Then they fired the #1 nuke commander, and then the AP said it was leaked to them. The White House wants it secret. And it was because of a loss of trust by the president in the commander, the head of all nuclear forces, Major General. You got that going on. And then you got Lindsey Graham saying South Carolina will be nuked, and that's where the nukes were supposedly going. You've got a drill for martial law on the East Coast coming up officially next month. You've got other financial drills going on, being put on by the federal government and FinCEN and FSISAC. You've got the welfare cards going down, which is clearly a test. All of this is happening, and it just makes me get even sicker inside as I feel impending doom at a level I've never felt it before. And again, you say you feel it. Your brain has all these thousands of points that the conscious mind can't even collate, but the subconscious can. And then at a gut level, I feel nauseous, folks. In fact, I heard Michael Savage, when he was talking about some of the cases we were covering last week, with them executing the woman in D.C., he said he gets dizzy. And that's exactly what happens to me now. When he said that, and I saw the clip on YouTube, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. When you actually care, you actually want a future, you actually study things, you're a serious person, I get nauseous, and then I get dizzy. I guess that's the old saying of, it was so incredible he was dizzied. You know, dizzying. Or sometimes you see something so beautiful, so wonderful, they say it's dizzying. Well, let me tell you, watching America degenerate and rot in front of my eyes with maggots crawling all over it is vomitous. And I'm not trying to be negative here. But I can't stop thinking about all the serious news. Like my wife calls me up and goes, let's go see a movie. Let's have some fun. And I'm just like, I can't do it. I just can't have fun. It's sick. Maybe I'm the bad person. Maybe I shouldn't care about all this bad stuff, and I should just go watch football games and not care and just let my kids eat GMO and drink fluoride water all day and just party and just run around. But I can't do it. And I'm not here trying to talk about myself all day. It's just that I look at what's going on, and it's insane. I look at the raw videos of vets with their arms and legs blown off, some of them double amputees missing both legs on crutches, going to the World War II memorials, and the vets pulling vets with prosthesis, knocking down barricades. I see this. And then I see the Democratic Party put out a fundraiser saying they're all racist white people, raise money to fight the racist Tea Party. And I see the images of cops in UN blue uniforms, riot police, attacking elderly veterans with billy clubs. And now new footage has come out. You know, the headline in the mainstream media is, documentary filmmaker claims police brutality. And he has footage showing the police attacking peaceful women. And that's what was weird about these guys in the footage I was watching, the live feeds. We have them up on Infowars.com, archive from yesterday. Is that if you were missing legs or in a wheelchair or were women, they would come over and get in your face, the cops would, and they wouldn't mess with like 25-year-old veterans and people. And it's that cowardly instinct, too. They always mess with old people or people they think are weak. And then there's this image of the 75-year-old, you know, vet pushing the little cop back. And you can look at the cop and their whole mannerism and the Darth Vader gloves they're wearing. And you could tell. I mean, I bet you $1 million those cops you're looking at are hardcore liberal, socialist, you know, goons. Well, just because they're so wimpy. I mean, I just, you know the type. I mean, it's just, they really think the Tea Party are the bad guys. The real Tea Party, not the Republican neocon Tea Party that the mainline Republicans are decrying right now. We have that. We have the nuke report I'm going to break down coming up. We have the shutdown of the welfare cards. We have China, official press agency calls for new reserve currency and new world order. We've got all of this coming up today on the broadcast. But again, we salute Michael Savage for having the courage, compared to the whole gallery of other cowards in the media, to cover our missing nuke story. So we salute everybody else that has courage. That's all we need to turn this around.
It's
Well, the head of the IMF is saying that the fate of the world is in the hands of the Congress and the debt increase. And so they'll just keep increasing it, increasing it, increasing it until we're totally bankrupt. And then they'll have another debt increase fight and say that it's all our fault that we didn't increase it again, that everything collapses. She says it's very, very concerning. And then Bloomberg says we may join Germany in the pantheon of defaults and then totally implode. They have already maneuvered us to this position. Now they're busy teaching us, just as they've done in countless other countries, that it's our fault things are collapsing because we didn't pay the debt on time, not that they created the giant debt to begin with. Doubling the number of people on food stamps in 5 years. Out of control spending at every level. And then meanwhile, computer glitch blamed for nationwide EBT system shutdown on Saturday. That's CBS News reporting that. And they had people freaking out, panicking, leaving their carts of food, fights breaking out, all sorts of crises happening all across the United States. And then, I believe this is all a test, they said nothing to do with the government shutdown. But they say if there is a default, it could be 8 days that the EBT cards don't work. Folks, I guarantee you within 2 days of the EBT not working, the looting and the burning will begin. The looting and the burning will begin, and the military will be called out, and then the president will be set to have the military on the streets, and then there'll have to be a higher tax to restore confidence, to bail out the banks again. This is how they hold you hostage. Because remember, the globalists are all exempt from the taxes, just like the head of the IMF is on record. She is exempt from EU taxes, but she wants to raise everybody else's. Here it is. Debt default could spark food stamp riots. EBT card glitch led to many riots and looting after just hours Saturday. That's a Paul Joseph Watson article on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. And the only thing holding back the looting, it always happens in the cities that don't have guns. Chicago, New York, L.A., D.C. I mean, if the EBT cards don't ever work, folks, Chicago, D.C., New York are going up in flames. In flames, because nobody can protect themselves. Yeah, here's an image from Katrina. It says, you loot, we shoot. But the problem is the cops and military wouldn't go after the actual looters. They went to all the rich houses and robbed them. Oh, yeah, the cops stole the diamonds, the gold, the guns. It all came out on record. They went to the richest neighborhood with the big red one from the U.S. Army. And by the way, it came out on ABC News. They killed U.S. citizens that didn't turn their guns in. That got swept under the rug, but did come out in court later. They murdered people that stayed in their mansions. Land of the free, home of the brave, honey. So let's continue here. EBT card food stamp recipients ransack Walmart stores, and you already know about what happened. It was zero, and then all of a sudden it was unlimited. That's what it's like to be a globalist, where they just have unlimited trillions for themselves of fiat currency. And so all they do is create a giant fiat debt to sign us onto it to be their debtor slaves. But all of it's coming to an end. All of it where folks are, with a magic wave of their wand, going in and getting all their free EBT. This is life under the digital unnatural system, where 50 million Americans, it's really 101 million get food assistance every week, but it's right at about 49 million that are on full-time federal food stamps. Then there's millions of others that are on state different food assistance programs. So it's 101 million. 101 million get food aid from federal government, outnumber full-time private sector workers. And that's a Department of Agriculture estimate that CNS News reported on. How's that sound? Well, that sounds like land of the free, home of the brave to me. And all these people are being taught, a guy driving a nice car, somebody that has a nice house, they're rich and they stole it from you. They're bad. The prosperity is the reason you're so poor and only get your welfare check and your food stamps and sit in your apartment smoking dope all day watching Jerry Springer. And that anybody that runs a business and works hard and you know, the lights are on at 10 o'clock at night most nights, we're the bad people. You understand that? Warren Buffett says so. We've got to have our taxes raised because we're rich. If you make $1 more than a welfare recipient, you're a racist person who needs to have their money taken. Warren Buffett taught all the poor people this, all the permanent welfare class this, and they believe it. In fact, still, I see the comments on YouTube and on Infowars.com, and still the Democrats are saying, I'm a big fat liar, I'm a racist, Obamacare's free, I'm just jealous that they're all getting free health care. Of course, they're not. They're going to get totally hammered, but they don't care. Feeling like they're winners is what matters. That's why the permanent welfare class spends their welfare check on lottery tickets, because they're idiots. The United States, like every other country under globalist control, like Greece, like Iceland, like Weimar Germany, is being maneuvered towards absolute financial implosion and a fire sale of the assets of the country, just like Italy, just like Greece, just like Spain, just like Portugal. You notice now they're taking over first world and old world nations. They're done imploding South Africa, and Nigeria, and Brazil, and Argentina. They are now moving in. They've been feeding on Japan for 15 years now. This is economic conquest. And here is the Bloomberg headline: U.S. may join Germany of 1933 in pantheon of defaults. Reneging on its debt obligations would make the U.S. the first major Western government to default since Nazi Germany 80 years ago. Actually, folks, the Versailles Treaty was the reason the Nazis got in. They actually kind of blame the Nazis on the end of Versailles, when the whole fact is Versailles and the unfair, unmitigatedly impossible bills that were impossible to pay back, that's what helped bring the Nazis in, was the Treaty of Versailles. But again, Bloomberg knows that even financial readers are ignorant and don't understand this, so they blame the default on bringing the Nazis in when it was the Nazis that came in and basically defaulted. And that's what made them such heroes to the people of Germany, because it's where you take a debt that's impossible at 20, 30, 40% interest, that's impossible to pay back, and then get sucked dry of war reparations. Germany unilaterally ceased payments on long-term borrowings May 6, 1933, 3 months after Adolf Hitler was installed as chancellor. The default helped cement Hitler's power base following years of political instability as the Weimar Republic struggled with its crushing debts. These are generally catastrophic economic events, said Professor Eugene N. White, an economics historian at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. There's no happy ending. The debt reparations piled into Germany, which in 1913 was the world's third biggest economy, sparked the hyperinflation, borrowing, and political deadlock that brought the Nazis to power and the default. So in a way, this article is accurate. It shows how excessive debt, and then it goes through the horrible results, the Civil War, the despotism that ravaged different countries in previous periods in Europe. So that's what's going on right now. And the very people that have maneuvered us into this untenable, bankrupt position are the ones grandstanding now, saying, give them $100 trillion in further global taxes in the next decade. That's the Davos statement of 3 years ago. And they will fix the economy. Basically, hand everything over to them, and the EBT cards will continue to operate. And you'll continue to be able to get your pension fund and your Social Security. And if you let them nationalize the private pension funds and tax them, you'll still get something. But if you don't give in to them and at least let them take control of even more, then everything will break down. And then you give them more power and give them more control, just like in 2008 with the debt crisis. And then 5, 6 years later, you're at the next step of impoverishment. This is the program. This is the plan, and the globalists are using China to hedge their bets with the 300 million slaves and the Foxconn Apple slave factories and suicide nets and rivers that are so toxic they catch on fire and giant power plants being built everywhere as our clean plants are being shut down. The globalists have moved everything there to leverage out their competition here. This is economic warfare, backed up by armored vehicles, helicopters, drones, militarized police domestically to make sure we go into this collectivization quietly. And so Homeland Security demonizes the gun owners, the veterans, the returning veterans, the libertarians, the constitutionalists, because we're what's left. We understand what's happening. We're the opposition to this takeover. And if we get the word out, we'll be like Iceland and Ireland to a certain extent, that say, you know what, 90+% of this debt's derivatives that aren't ours that you guys have signed us onto, you're holding us hostage. We are going to default on the debt that isn't ours that you signed us onto. We're going to call your bluff. Go ahead and implode things. You're going to get the blame. And then they back off. They've backed off partially in Italy. They've backed off in Iceland completely. They've backed off. Switzerland would never let anybody do this in their country. And they're so wealthy that all they're doing is preparing for martial law on their borders as France and other countries collapse. And the Swiss government believes Europe, especially welfare states like Spain and France, will collapse. And they are now setting up troop formations in the mountains around their borders to mow down the French, to mow down the Italians, to mow down. This is in mainstream news. They are reinforcing and drilling for the collapse of Europe, and when giant hordes of welfare zombies come in, demanding free goodies and demanding 5 months a year of vacation, they are preparing in Switzerland for the collapse. And by the way, Switzerland is basically a bunch of high IQ German and Italian and French rednecks that for 400 years have been breeding with each other. And it's more redneck than, you know, say someplace like Oklahoma. That's basically what they are, is the rednecks of Europe. They're just bathing in money, bathing in wealth, bathing in power, bathing in machine guns, bathing in rocket launchers, bathing in the lowest crime rate in the world, bathing in liberty, bathing in healthy children, just bathing and bathing in it. While everyone else just runs around collapsing, overrun with all sorts of corruption. By the way, you know we got the model, to a great extent, of America from the Swiss. Their experiment was only 100-something years old at the time this country was founded. And that's one of the main groups cited, was the Swiss militia model, where they have weapons caches in every town of rocket launchers, small artillery pieces, hand grenades, you name it. And then every member of the military, after they get out and serve their year in the military, they then have to have a gun for the rest of their life. And they have home inspections to make sure that your guns are hidden, so that if the government got taken over by tyrants, they couldn't find the guns. And then your default order in the cantons in the states is, if the federal government ever took over and tried to take over the cantons, you are to resist them. Wow, that sounds like George Washington type behavior to me. And we can't have the Swiss model. That itself is really a Dutch model that they got rid of a long time ago. The Dutch had some of the most successful, wealthy ports. You go back 400, 500 years ago, but they had a problem with pirates coming in at night and demanding a bunch of booty, a ransom, or they would burn down a bunch of ships. They would open fire on ships, and you never knew when they were going to strike in the middle of the night pulling in. So they said, you know, we're not going to pay your ransom. We're going to arm and build little private fortresses in the town, paid for voluntarily by citizens, and whoever wants to volunteer to arm in these forts and mount cannons, they will then be heavily armed. And that's what, in fact, guys, search Rembrandt. He did paintings of Dutch militia. Type in Rembrandt Dutch militia. And it'll show the guys standing there with all their weapons. And then they have these little, and if you go to the Netherlands, there's these little forts all over the place, right there by where the ship channels and things are, now that are way inland because they keep reclaiming more of the sea and turning it to land. But all over the country, you could see little fortresses that would have a bar and a restaurant in the bottom. Everybody hung out at the club. And then you'd have people that were, yeah, there it is. There's some of the paintings of some of the militias. And so that model got picked up by the Swiss. But heaven forbid we be like that. And that's how you have a free society, where every man's armed, every man's trained to be a warrior, every man's independent. I mean, can you imagine in the U.S. if in every neighborhood there was a big locked iron box, or in the mountains a cave with an iron door filled with high-tech, grenade launchers and rocket launchers? and everybody knew how to use them. And what are they training to do? They're training to protect their country during the collapse. What are we doing as the Tea Party, as the Patriots? We're buying guns, getting prepared, getting ready as well, just like our forebears would do. From the giant, sniveling, dumbed-down, MTV brainwashed hordes of folks that literally think that Walmart is a field that never dies. Where you go and you pick the GMO food off the shelves and load it in your basket. People said money didn't grow on trees. Yeah, it does. And, of course, they only give a small portion of the overall welfare system to the poor to keep them part of the game. The real welfare whores are Warren Buffett and the rest of them. And so now here's Zero Hedge. China's official press agency calls for new reserve currency and new world order. That's a quote in their official Communist Party Chinese release. They say it needs to be the end of the Americanized world, on and on and on. When they know full well the globalists have moved everything over there, and China now dictates what comes out in our movies, what comes out on television. That is the Communist Party does over there, and they're all part of the same deal, and the globalists have hedged their bets to move everything to China. That's what the CFR openly says. That is the treason. Here's the von Mises Institute. How much longer will the dollar be the reserve currency? It says not long. But again, this is all being maneuvered to where those of us that say, hey, 17 trillion is untenable, now you want to go to 20 trillion in the next year. We got to slow this down. This isn't working. You're devaluing the currency with QE Unlimited. The new Fed chief says he's going to speed up money printing even faster. This is dangerous. This is Weimar Republic. They turn around and say, no, you're Weimar Republic because you won't let us do this, knowing the general public literally knows everything about Kate Upton, knows everything about the Redskin controversy, knows everything about Bob Costas, knows everything about how to apply makeup, knows everything about how to act cool in front of your buddies, but has no idea what QE Unlimited is, has no idea what's going on. It runs from bad to worse. And I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just saying we are in deep trouble. Because the paramilitary police, all they do is train to take on anybody that loves their family, anybody that cares about freedom, anybody that knows what's going on. We're the enemy in this land of crazy people, in this land of toddling morons. Washington Blog has a story up on Infowars.com. It says the U.S. has repeatedly defaulted, and it's all a bunch of hype, and that's true. Even the New York Times admits it's happened before. Yeah, 1933. See, that wasn't just Germany defaulting. That was a global default into banker control. Let's continue here. I've already covered this yesterday, but it's so historical to see thousands and thousands of vets, many of them with prosthesis, missing both legs, both arms, you name it, knocking over the barricades, and to see the police attacking them because they dared carry the barricades in a protest down to the White House, and then to see the Democratic Party come out, I've got two different articles here, and say that they're racist. It was a racist meeting. See, everything's racist. Don't turn your guns in, you're racist. Don't like Obamacare, you're racist. And this is very important because they don't want blacks, Hispanics, and Asians to ever feel like they could come out and protest against their memorials being shut down. It makes it, even if it isn't true, it makes it that way. I can't tell you how many black folks I've seen on the news or listened to on talk radio who say, well, I'd come out to a Tea Party event, a pro-Second Amendment event, but, you know, I heard it's all racist. And even if they know it's not true, they still say, I feel uncomfortable. So this is the type of stuff that's going on. This is the total divide and conquer that is happening. So they can steal all of our birthrights while playing us off against each other. But here it is. Riot police use force against elderly vets outside White House. Incredible footage. Kit Daniels has it. CNN mocks Million Vet March as Tea Party crazies. Makes fun of World War II vets, you name it. Naturally, the DCCC, Democratic Fundraising Group, shows one guy with a Confederate flag and says Million Vets March racist, ignores all the images of people with their prosthesis legs out there demonstrating, and as if a rebel flag is even bad. For most people, that means I'm sick of hearing being from the South is bad. That's what it means, folks. Heritage. But it doesn't matter. They just use that over and over again like nothing else matters. And of course, how many times have we caught the Democrats going out with racist signs at Trayvon Martin events? Turns out they're Democratic Party operatives saying, you know, I hate black people, holding a sign up. And it turns out they're a Democratic Party operative like in Houston. Or Rand Paul events, people wearing overalls with a hayseed in their mouth, literally saying, I don't like blacks and Mexicans, I love Rand Paul. And, of course, they'll probably take that clip out of context and say, I just said that, when I'm quoting their operative that actually got caught when Rand Paul was running for Senate. This is what they do, preying on their constituents, preying on them. Here's the Examiner article. Documentary filmmaker alleges police brutality at Million Mile March. They don't allege it. You see the cops hitting men, women, and elderly with batons on the video. There's no alleging it. I love how, I'm not knocking this writer, but I love how supposedly being a journalist means you never come up with a point of view. That's pure bull. I mean, if you got video of, say, a car wreck happening, it isn't, we allege there was a car wreck. Or the videographer alleges he videotaped the Concorde blowing up as it took off from Charles de Gaulle Airport. There's no alleging that the Concorde took off and its engines caught on fire and it blew up, that famous footage. There's no alleging the cops come up and start hitting people with their billy clubs. We're going to come back and after the break and get into Michael Savage and why it's so important that the missing nuke story be investigated. Because, folks, our source is a good source, known to us for a very long time. I don't want to say more than that. And they just said there weren't supposed to be nukes here. There was no paperwork. This is a big deal. The base police, that are private police, were seen by this individual saying, I'm not going to sign off on this. The commander had to come out and tell him, you let the nukes leave, the head of the base, the general. The police stopped the trucks and you're going to tell me where this is going. And they did tell them where it was going. And then all these top nuke generals get fired and all this afterwards. That's why this is serious. I don't know what's going on with it, but we need answers. Because I don't blame people not believing us from an anonymous source, you know, at the beginning, but look at all the stuff that's happened since then. Look at how they haven't ever come out and said, we're making this up. Because, folks, we have a real source who says they saw this. Can you imagine if the EBT cards, the welfare cards, the food stamp cards, if there was sporadic looting and fights breaking out over just a few hours of them being down? Can you imagine a few days, a few weeks? And that's what they're in the news saying. If there's a default, and then the debt just goes up by trillions and trillions, and that's going to make us end up going into total debt slavery and a default as well. Every economist we've interviewed says we're destroyed financially and economically if we continue down this road, and we're destroyed if we pull out and stop. We are now a domesticated, demonic country. That doesn't mean everybody. There's a large group waking up and getting concerned. But half the public are self-centered, childlike weirdos raised on television. And I want to open the phones up later in the next hour to get your take on this situation and where you think it's all going, what you think of the veterans being valiant and toppling the barricades where the illegal aliens are allowed to demonstrate, but veterans can't travel, and then going to the White House and the police attacking them, but then backing off when the veterans fought back. All it would have took was somebody beating up really bad or shooting one of those veterans, and I think you're going to see a civil war break out. And I don't want that to happen. And I don't want them to start a civil war or stage a false flag and then blame it on patriots, and then use that as an excuse for the collapse that's happening. The globalists are behind the collapse. The New World Order is behind the collapse. And I'll get into Michael Savage when I start the next hour because I don't have time to do it right now. But it's a big deal to have Savage in the top 3 talk show hosts in the country, undoubtedly, for political in the top 2. probably going to end up being the top talk show host in the country the way things are lining up. And to have him come out for 16 minutes and cover our missing nuke report, he's the only other big media to cover it. And we're big. We're big on the internet, in the top 10 on talk radio, about 9 or so I would really estimate for terrestrial radio. You know, they put us in the top 20 or so on talkers, but it's more like the top 10. When you talk about internet total and younger audiences and global audiences, we're as big as it gets. Right up there with Limbaugh, anybody else. But when it comes to domestically, just in the U.S., we're, you know, a third of the audience of a Michael Savage, a third of the audience terrestrially, or probably even less of a Rush Limbaugh. So to have him come out and recognize, wait, the media's not covering this. They're not denying it. And after they said this, the top 2 nuke generals and admiral are fired, and more generals have now been fired since he talked about it on Friday, 2 Marine Corps generals. There's a purge going on. We know what happened with Benghazi. And I don't know what these nukes are for, but most of the people I trust say it's probably some type of nuclear blackmail like the 2007 thing. Which, by the way, we're going to play that again for people. Some folks, I've seen emails and comments that that didn't even happen. Oh, yeah, I'm going to play CBS and CNN for you where that happened. Now, maybe there's a reason this went on. Maybe something else. Maybe it was a drill. Maybe it's a test. Maybe my source was given disinfo. But I don't think so, because they would have run with this and attacked us. I'm not worried. I know my source is real, so they're wrong if they're wrong. Very credible source, very high level. That's their problem. Anybody in real media would go with something from a source at this level. And I said, you know, they could be wrong. And hedge my bet up front. I had a responsibility to cover this, by the way. This isn't the type of thing you do, okay, if you just care about your own skin. By the way, if you want to support the broadcast, we get incredibly high-quality products. We have more of it that came in, but it's selling out quick. The Nation Iodine, Atomic Iodine, does incredible things according to the reports out there and the medical doctors we've talked to and others for the thyroid, the body, the background radiation, the blocker, the fluoride detoxer, InfoWarsLife.com. We also have the Pro Pure water filtration, discounted promo code WATER 10%, InfoWarsStore.com.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
All right, my friends, some stations just joined us for the next 2 hours. At the bottom of the hour, we have a guest popping in who's been censored for his Second Amendment views, so he's now had his First Amendment censored as well. Coming up in the next segment, I've mentioned it, but I want to play a clip from Michael Savage's syndicated radio program Friday where he covered the missing nuke story. And I want to recap as simply as I can why this is such a big deal. I cannot stress enough how historical it was to have the veterans go and take over the monuments that have been blocked and to tear down the barriers. Now the feds have ordered the barricades back up at the World War II Memorial. So see, you have to want it more. You have to continue to show up and engage in civil disobedience everywhere. Anytime. Because they understand it's a war of attrition, just staying on your back. They want to break your will, you have to break their will. This is a war, ladies and gentlemen. You have to learn that. And I know many of you understand that. We're also going to continue to get into the economic news and the default news and take your phone calls as well today. But as I said, when we come back from break, I'm going to get into the other news. Now, I also have this report that just shows the direction society is going in. Texans react to fans cheering at the injury of one of the other players. And it just shows how it's all gladiatorial. In a degenerate society, you get off on others being hurt. You get off on other people having bad things happen to them. It's very gladiatorial. It's what the what the Romans did. And it's one thing if it's boxing, and that's what the sport is set to be, as a test of wills and skill and straight up brawn. But the fact is that when you cheer the other team's mishap at something like football, it's something that before, here to this point, has not been acceptable. Not been something that was culturally seen as good sportsmanship. And even when there's the peer pressure of, hey, it's not good to act like this, people do it more and more. Because it's just like in England. 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have all the football hooligans and the big fights breaking out like they are now and all the degeneracy. It's part of the decline of a culture historically. You can go back over 15, 16, 1700 years to the final collapse of the Roman Empire in 410, if you want to be technical, 1600 years ago. And the historians then were writing about the welfare class and the growing welfare class and the open borders with people coming in to be part of the welfare class and the way the corrupt elites set up and the corrupt police forces and the corrupt systems and the gladiatorial events and the degeneracy of the public. The public just got soft. And the sexual behavior of the Romans. And this is a cycle that, again, we see in every case throughout history. So when we come back, we're going to be breaking all of this down and a lot more. And as I said, taking your phone calls on the subjects that we have discussed here so far. The situation is getting dire, obviously. And we don't know what type of rabbits the establishment will pull out of a hat to try to get the public to basically buy into their fraud. But the good news is every poll shows the public, on average, doesn't trust the system anymore. And that, at least, is a positive thing. Well, the international globalist banker, the head of the IMF, says we better take on more debt or the entire world economy will implode. And of course, she's a big globalist banker. She wants that. More fiat debt made up that the government signs on to, that these bankers get to use, and then we end up becoming their debt slaves, bailing them out. How about we get rid of their global system? How about we restore freedom? How about we set up economies, once again, that are based on quality and based on building a good civilization, not a civilization based on fraud and corruption and welfare cards. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I give out the toll-free number and get into the latest NSA news, the latest on the global default, and the veterans removing barricades from memorials and bringing them to the White House only to be attacked by riot police in UN blue uniforms. Before I get to all of that, just recapping what's been one of the top stories for us since September 3rd last month. If you go back to last month, our source said that there's not supposed to be nukes at Dyess Air Force Base in West Texas. And just recapping for people that just joined us. And that these nukes were brought out of mothballs and loaded on trucks with no paperwork. And when the base police and others and the other officers said, what's going on? We're not going to allow this to happen. The base commander came out and said, nope, this is authorized, and it rolled out. And the police said, where is this going? And they said, it's going to the East Coast. It's going to South Carolina. It's going to that area. Now, we come out and report that our source told us this, and it's a very credible source, but that they didn't know why it was going there, but just that it was highly irregular and probably illegal. And we have the clip we're going to play first before we get to Michael Savage of CNN back in 2007 reporting on missing nukes from Minot, North Dakota. And I'm going to play this clip first so people understand this was a big deal then. And at first it was, oh, there's a rumor there were nukes being flown down to the big Air Force base in Louisiana. And then it turned out to be a true story. And they were going to fly it to the Middle East, 6 cruise missiles at that time. And And then it came out that it indeed had happened, that a bunch of people from Minot, North Dakota base that loaded the missiles mysteriously started dying. It was a big deal. We never learned exactly what was being planned. But ladies and gentlemen, these are the most highly controlled devices out there. We played this clip yesterday, again from CNN, and I want to introduce this before I get back into the news story so people understand why this is such a big deal and why I'm fundamentally so freaked out. We've been reporting this, and if this isn't true, or if our source is wrong, we need the so-called dinosaur media to come out and show how we're wrong. We need the base to come out and deny this. We need the media to respond, but they won't. Just 6 years ago, it was a big deal when stuff like this went on. And they won't cover it now. They won't deny it now. And then you add to this the #2 nuke admiral, #2 over all nuclear forces, it turns out was fired on September 3rd. We didn't know about it till 2 weeks later when it got leaked. They kept it secret. Now the #1 commander, General Carey, Major General, he was fired last week, and AP said this had to be leaked to them. The White House didn't want anybody knowing. It's always been public when they sack a general. There's major stuff going on, and I'm not sure exactly what, but my gut, I'm going to say this again. I'm having trouble talking. I'm sure you're noticing this, that I sound different today. It's because I'm disgusted at so many levels. There's the headline. General in charge of nuclear missiles fired. Major General Michael Carey, 35-year veteran. They said because of lack of trust, loss of trust by the president and him. There's a litmus test going on right now. We know it's been happening with Benghazi and more, where they're purging the top ranks. 2 other Marine Corps generals were canned as well over the weekend, and they've made up little frivolous excuses for that. There's major stuff going on. And I said back in September, I said, I hope this is just a drill, dummy warheads. They were testing what the base would do. I hope maybe it's just a secret transfer they don't want the Russians to know about. Probably no big deal. We know there's secret nuke caches. Weldon Henson was at that base for years, assigned to working on B-2 bombers and F-16s, and he said it was well known there were nukes there, but it was secret since the '86 START treaty. All that is important. They said they'd have Russians in there inspecting the bombers, that they had slats in them so they couldn't carry the hydrogen bombs. I was thinking this is probably not that big of a deal. They're always sneaking around with nukes, but then all hell broke loose after. So maybe it's still not a big deal, but I'm telling you, you go and you do something really dangerous like this. You go out on a limb with a source you know is credible but still incredibly dangerous. The source goes out on a limb, and no one covers it a month later. We're talking a month and 11 days later, except Michael Savage. And that's good. We're glad he covered it and very thankful. The article's up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com where you can hear the full 16 minutes where he broke it down. And he said, yeah, the press needs to cover this. There needs to be answers. And hopefully now they can't ignore him with, 8, 9, 10 million listeners a day. Hopefully something will come out of this. I mean, I want them to come out and deny it or say you were mistaken or those were decommissioned being sent to the, what is it called, Pantex? What's the giant factory close to there where they build them and dismantle them? The biggest nuke plant in the world is very close to Dias. Yeah, Pantex. But no, none of that happened. It just gets worse from there. Lindsey Graham, that day, hours after we came out with it, said in CBS News that South Carolina will be nuked and New York will if we don't attack Syria. This is why I'm freaking out. Let's go to this CNN clip from 6 years ago with the last missing nukes so people understand what a big deal this is.
Let's tell people what we do know. It was last Thursday, a B-52 bomber loaded 6 air-launched cruise missiles under its wings, took off from Minot, North Dakota, flew the length of the United States to Barksdale, Louisiana. Those missiles were supposed to be decommissioned. There was just one little problem. When they landed in Louisiana, they found that those missiles that were supposed to be basically decommissioned and taken out of service, each of them had a nuclear warhead on them. 6 nuclear warheads flying the length of the United States, and no one seemed to know it. To say the least, a major investigation is underway now. The Air Force officer in charge of the squadron loading the munitions, relieved of duty. They took an immediate inventory of all Air Force nuclear weapons to make sure they had everything. They say the public was never in any danger. The weapons were not armed, that there would have been no nuclear detonation if in some fashion the missiles had basically fallen off the wings of the airplane. But really, small comfort to most of the military and to many Americans, perhaps. This sort of thing is not supposed to happen. Nuclear weapons are the most guarded, the most secure.
Yeah, that's right, because it wasn't an accident. We did major investigations. It was supposed to fly out from there to the Middle East. They were going to give the nukes to somebody. They were up to a false flag. Something big was going on. We know that from our sources. Huge, huge operation that good guys inside the government blew the whistle on. Now, here's a few minutes of what Michael Savage had to say about this on Friday and the new report about missing nukes. Here it is.
We're asking a simple question. Why has Obama purged the top nuclear commanders from our military? Vice Admiral Tim Giardina and Major General Michael Carey were thrown out over nothing. Now, there's only one site again that's talking about. It's the same site that talked about the killing of the unarmed black woman in Washington 2 weeks ago. Remember, if they can kill an unarmed black woman, execute her after removing the baby from a car, and then shoot her to death, without one word from the phony reverends or from the useless Pravda media, what does that tell you they can do to anybody in this country? So now they're purging the military. They're whacking people for no reason whatsoever. Top nuke commanders terminated following missing nuclear warheads report is the headline on prisonplanet.com. That's Alex Jones's website. He's the only one covering this. I just found it by Anthony Gucciardi. And here's what they say. 2 of the top nuclear commanders within the United States have now been terminated following the exclusive high-level military leak report by Alex Jones and myself regarding the secret and unsigned nuclear weapons transfer from Dyess Air Force Base to South Carolina. Disturbingly, the high-level suspensions from top generals within the military establishment are not the only red flags to follow the leaked report. Here's a strange sentence. Even before it was announced that the second highest nuke commander in the U.S. was suspended on the same day of the secret nuke transfer just weeks later, it was Senator Lindsey Graham who went on record hours after our report in saying that a nuclear attack could come to South Carolina in the event that we did not move militarily against Syria and Iran, pushing even harder to action against both Iran and Syria. What is this? What has Lindsey Graham got to do with this? Lindsey Graham is a very strange, dangerous individual in my estimation.
Folks, we're going to go to break and come back, and you can see the full video and audio. Hear it up on Infowars.com. But he really breaks it all down in 16 minutes better than I can, because he can calm down. I'm having a lot of trouble with this. Point is, we don't know exactly what's happening, but it's bad. Here's what I'm saying, if you just joined us. We have a source, very high level, that was very upset, saying mothballed nukes being reportedly taken out of here, put on trucks, connected to Special Forces Command out of Florida, being sent to the East Coast, South Carolina, Georgia area. And this is very unusual, just like the Minot, North Dakota nuke situation 2007. So we're like, folks, we don't know what this means. It's a good source, very suspicious. We'll see what comes out of it. Then we learn 2 weeks later, the #2 general over those nukes nationwide was canned secretly. Then the #1 general was canned last week, again secretly, and no one knew until Friday when AP got the leak. Now they're canning 2 more Marine Corps generals. And loss of trust is what they're saying with General Kerry, Major General Kerry, the head of the entire nuclear forces. It's definitely connected. And that's why I'm so upset, is that I've had a nasty feeling about this the whole time. And it's like the feeling of walking in front of a firing squad, basically, to be in the middle of stuff like this. I mean, my gut tells me, man, this is dangerous. And then I just look at the public dancing around like a bunch of idiots, and it makes me hate everybody. I'm going to be honest about it. I don't like feeling like this. I don't like it. I mean, it's like Rome, with a bunch of people, cheering when somebody gets hurt in football, and all the corruption and the EBT cards not working. It's this backdrop of people rioting for their free goods, and foreign IMF and the foreign communist Chinese lecturing us when they're running our debt, maneuvering us towards total collision course. Political correctness with Bob Costas grandstanding over the name Redskins is some political distraction. It just goes on and on and on and on. I've never really talked like this on air, folks, but I got to tell you, I used to halfway be embarrassed, because that's just who sponsors with us, because that's the audience we have. They're smart people that know they need to be prepared in a corrupt society like this, with civilization teetering on the edge and supply chain being just in time and all the other factors that people like James Leslie Rawls and so many others have been absolutely right. I mean, I've always been like, yeah, you need some storable food, and yeah, you need to be prepared, and yeah, but that's just what, our sponsors do, and that's who supports us. So I guess I was kind of like halfway embarrassed. I'm always, having sponsors that are survival this, survival that, but I do it myself. But it's kind of like you're almost embarrassed with all the guns and the food and the training, and I hope things don't collapse. I'm sure it'll be okay. This is just in case. Now I'm actually going and getting ready and going over things and worried about stuff and getting to know my neighbors and looking at how degenerate the general population is, and just freaked out. I realize now it's not a chance things are going to unravel and collapse, so it's okay morally that I promote survivalism, because my audience are survivalists who are smart people, so it's okay that we fund getting the message of liberty out by selling people high-quality preparedness goods. But now I've gone from 20-30% chance that'll ever be needed to like 95%. I don't see any way out down the road. It may be a month, it may be 5 years. But now I realize this country is in a train wreck, and it's only going to get worse. It may get better after the wreck, but we're going through this. That's the point I'm making. And it's not some good feeling being right. It's not some good feeling knowing that my worst projections are accurate. It's horrible. It's like when you learn your grandpa's got bone cancer. It's exactly what this feels like, but beyond it. Our country is dying right now. And the general public is so decadent. That's why it's dying, because evil can take over, because people are demonic slobs now. Or they're poisoned by GMOs and the aspartame and the chemicals, and they don't even know what's going on anymore. And they're busy working 2-3 jobs, and they got a house full of screaming kids, and everybody's overwhelmed in this modern society. We've got to focus on essentials, family, and liberty, and private property, and God. And self-defense. We got to stop caring about all the side issues, and we've got to get together as liberty lovers and get ready, because I'm telling you, folks, I'm telling you, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And you got missing nuclear weapons. Of course, our report's accurate. I wish my source wasn't right. I've been trying to think of ways he could be wrong. It's just horrible. I mean, it's another symptom. In the middle of last week, Infowars.com reporter and researcher Julie Wilson wrote a story dealing with the U.S. Postal Service banning and destroying tens of millions of dollars of Let's Move sports stamps that showed people jumping rope and jogging, saying that's not a good role model for children to show physical fitness because it's dangerous. The headline was, Let's Move stamps prompt safety concerns. Since then, that was 4 days ago, And you can see we broke this. And I'm not bragging, hey, we broke this, hey, we're hot shots. I'm just showing you how everything we basically cover and break ends up getting picked up by the mainstream media because they don't even know how to do research now or how to even look at their precious government and understand what it's up to. Now Fox News is covering it, CNN, ABC News, the Daily Mail. They are all reporting on it in the last 2 days. That's how it works. We report on it. Daily Mail picks it up. They watch everything we do. And then it moves on. So there's Fox News covering today what we covered. And again, I tried to go to the hike and bike trail today. And there was flooding in Austin in the last few days. But the hike and bike trail has got to be hundreds of square miles. I mean, it's just gigantic. Like half the city is greenbelt and off limits to housing. It's huge. So I pull up at one of the points I jog down into and go for a run. The Barton Creek is way down there. Not even out of its banks now. They got police tape up. I'm walking up to go in, and a woman walks up, getting in her car, and she comes out of her way to get out of her car, walk up, and not say friendly, hey, you can't go in there, it's closed. She walks over, and she goes, it's closed. You're not supposed to go in there. And they had, like, police tape up. And I said, yeah, I know. I live by Barton Creek. I know that it's back down to normal levels now. I'm going for a jog. There's all these trails that are, a mile away from the creek. And she gets real mad and stomps off. I come back up 30 minutes later after a jog, and a listener comes jogging by because he said he was a listener. And he goes, you better watch out. They were just here giving people tickets. And I went, really? Let me get that on tape. So I got him saying that on tape. And he goes, yeah, they were just here. You better get off the street. Of course, I was leaving. And I have a good feeling that she called the police. Now, imagine, folks, you've got, if you look at a satellite map of Austin, Texas, you'll see giant areas that are green through the city. I mean, it's got to be hundreds of square miles going out into Hayes County, out of Travis County. Giant areas. I mean, you can hike 20 miles on the Greenbelt easily in any direction, basically. It's unbelievable. And so I went down to the creek and shot video of it, and it was barely even rushing anymore. And used to, they didn't close it because it's dangerous, though. No one can go on the 100-plus square miles or whatever it is. Guys, look up estimates of greenbelts in Austin, Texas, the square mileage of these babies. They're some of the biggest in the country is the point. And now you go down there, and they've got these rangers down there constantly giving people tickets and all the rest of it. Some days you go down there, you'll see more rangers than you see people. They had falling rocks off one cliff. So they didn't just close right around the rocks. They closed miles of trail a few years ago because of falling rocks. You just can't even go into there because there's some cliffs and a rock fell on somebody. Yeah, there it is, the Barton Creek Greenbelt. That's just one part of it. How many square miles does it say it is? Yeah, that's 7.25 mile. That's just one of the trails. But I'm talking about the square miles total of it. It's just massive, 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 massive area. And that's about how it was flowing if you're watching us on TV. That's about what it looks like right now. It was way out of its banks yesterday. The point is, though, that they shut the whole thing down. And it's the nanny state because, well, you can't get near rushing water. Well, I can get near a pedestrian street, and I can be hit by a car. That kills tens of thousands a year. It's this idea of, well, you can't bring a football to school anymore. You can't bring a soccer ball. It's dangerous. You've got to wear a helmet to play soccer now. It's a total system of control. And the fact is the foreign banks are looting us. We're having our rights stolen, our freedom stolen. And they've got time to have park police in the misting rain running around giving people tickets. Yeah, blow that up. Back out of that for people to give an idea how big it is. Just zoom out and show a satellite shot of the entire city of Austin. Look at how big that Greenbelt is. Do you see it right there, folks? It starts there, but then it runs all the way out of town. Okay? Now imagine, I randomly pull up in some neighborhood to go into one of the entrances, and they've got police up there giving people tickets trying to go in. Going into that. Now look at the creek in the middle if you're a TV viewer or watcher. That's the creek. Now imagine a mile off the creek, I want to go for a run, nothing to do with the creek. I went down there because it was forbidden, of course, just to see this great evil. So there's the nanny state. Hey, if you're foreign banks, you want to steal $47 trillion, that's A-okay. If you want to do stuff like that, it's okay. If you want to put cancer viruses in the vaccines, that's A-okay. But if you want to come out with a USPS pro sports let's move stamps that show kids jumping rope and kids playing football and kids playing tennis, it's banned. And to me, that was sensational when Julie Wilson wrote about that last Thursday. Sensational. And it is sensational. But why is it usually Infowars.com that is shocked by something like that to initiate people having outrage? That's what's freaking me out. We have, from my source is telling the truth that they believe they were told they were real nuclear weapons that were secretly at the base being shipped out without proper paperwork, and the police freaked out in front of them as well. Everybody freaked out, just like when nukes showed up from Minot, North Dakota at Barksdale Air Force Base 6 years ago. Everybody freaked out. It got stopped that time. This time it didn't get stopped. The nukes disappeared on down the road. Maybe the source is wrong that they were nukes. I mean, I'm hoping this is wrong, but no one cares. Because did you hear the Washington Redskin name is racist? And did you hear the Second Amendment's racist? And did you hear Obamacare works wonderfully? And if you don't like it, you're a racist. And did you hear the veterans that had their arms and legs blown off, pulling down the barricades? The Democratic Party put out press releases saying they're racist. So it doesn't matter if one of the nukes goes off and you don't like being blown up by it, you're racist. Having any concern is racist. We're joined by Brian Aitken. I wanted to get on the nightly news, but we scheduled him here on the radio, so it's great to have him. He's going to pop in briefly with us. Banned by Kickstarter.com. I thought Brian Aitken's story was important because this is happening to a lot of people. If it's pro-free speech or pro-Second Amendment or pro-states' rights, they don't let you have a Kickstarter campaign. He was going to do a Kickstarter campaign to write a book. And the control of crowdsourcing and charity and things like this and political money giving is key. It's okay for the University of Texas to send out letters to all their alumni saying, give your estate to us when you die. It's okay for the socialists and the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center to go out and beg for money from all the professionals in the country, you know, to set up anti-free speech groups. But if I, God forbid, ever try to raise money or have a money bomb, it's the worst thing since Satan. If other, and he's got a bunch of examples of where they let socialist, communist, anti-freedom groups raise money for political action. But he wrote a book about people with legal guns having their guns taken. It happens all the time. Neighbor doesn't like that deer rifle they saw. Cops still come and say, well, the neighbor was scared, we're taking you to jail. You see it in the news all the time. He wrote a book about it. He was going to raise money to publish it. And Kickstarter came in and said, no, we're going to selectively not let you. Just like Google. People say, well, why use Google Store? Because that's where the market is. You go to the big store to then reach people and wake them up. It's the equivalent of brick and mortar. And just like black people weren't allowed to go in and eat at the lunch counter back in the 50s and early 60s, and they had to go say, yes, I want to eat there. Oh, go eat somewhere else. Well, there is nowhere for me to eat. Well, you shouldn't be upset you can't eat at this lunch counter. I can't sell the Obama deception on Google. They officially told us, we deem this racist, nothing to do with Obama's mixed heritage, nothing to do with him being black or white, nothing about that in the film. It's actually about how they want to go in and use Obama as the front to take over Africa and commit genocide, which now has actually started. And there's a story from that 5-6 years ago when the film came out. You can pull it up. Google Store bans Obama deception. And they told us, this is a racist movie. By the way, we submitted the Obama deception to Apple iTunes, and they refused it and said it was racist. And we're so busy, we never even did a report on that. So I live under the discrimination of, the Fox News, Fox Sports says it's racist, the NRA is racist. Doesn't matter if it was founded to train Northerners how to shoot after the Civil War, mainly black freed slaves, so they could protect themselves. That's on record historically. Doesn't matter, just say they're the Klan. They're the opposite of the Klan, just say they are. Doesn't matter the Obama deception has nothing to do with race, and they want to change the... I'm banned. Now, they found the article where Google deleted Obama deception one time. And no, it's Google Store bans sale of Obama deception. That's the headline from almost 6 years ago. The point is I'm going to go to our guests to talk about this. People say, oh, well, don't be on Kickstarter then. And then YouTube censors people when they say there are commons and you follow their rules, you can be there and you built YouTube, and then they selectively enforce. No, this is what the Nazis did with color of law, shutting down businesses of people they didn't like at first, and then it led to other things later. This is how they operate. This is the tyranny of like sending the IRS after Tea Party and after pro-life groups and after the press. Even AP last week had 4 articles saying there's a war on the press and that Obama's very dangerous. Good. People better get that, folks. We're all in danger. We either have courage, speak out against it, or it's all over. So bannedbykickstarter.com, Brian Aitken, or is it Aitken? How do I pronounce that?
It's Aitken, yeah.
All right, good to have you on with us. You got great video Skype, buddy.
Thank you.
So break down what happened to you, because if we don't stand up for you, we're all going to lose the great power of crowdsourcing. They only want to use crowdsourcing and idea crowdsourcing for their operations. Again, they're authoritarian pigs.
You're probably right. So I started a campaign on Kickstarter, and it was just for publishing my book. It wasn't for anything else. And they decided that that my project was trying to raise awareness, and because it was trying to raise awareness, that they weren't going to let me do a project at all. And they have campaigns all over Kickstarter that in its very title has the words, we're trying to raise awareness for one thing or another. And within my entire project, I didn't use those words once. But I included a quote that said, what the title of my project was, "It's dangerous to be right when the government is wrong." And this is my book project. And all it was I need funding for publishing and distribution and marketing, and to get this book out there. And they banned it. I appealed, and I said, I meet all of the guidelines on your guidelines page. Nowhere on your guidelines page does it say that a book can't raise awareness. And even if that is a policy, nowhere in my project am I saying that I'm trying to raise awareness. But of course, that's what Kickstarter exists for, to raise awareness, to raise funds. It's a crowdfunding site. Of course, you're trying to raise awareness for one thing or another. But they ultimately denied my appeal, and I had to go to Indiegogo, which is successfully, becoming kind of like a backup for Kickstarter in many cases for people who find themselves in a position like I am.
And you've now raised your goal. You wanted 20,000. You now raised 23,000.
That's right. Yeah.
So they failed in censoring you, and I think people should understand Indiegogo has not censored you yet, and so I guess that's how the free market works. They're the place to go.
And they, as soon as I just tweeted out about 15 minutes ago that I was about to be on your show to talk about how Kickstarter banned me, and Indiegogo followed me on Twitter, and we're talking about my project. So I think Indiegogo is a great venue for people to go to if they care about freedom and don't want to have to deal with giving a portion of the money they raise to companies like Kickstarter.
Now let's talk about what this thought crime book would have been about if you'd raised the money there, because this is a way to pre-ban a book. It's like aborting a baby before they even get conceived via time machine. It's like the Terminator going back to try to kill Sarah Connor.
It is. Well, it was about my personal experiences. Back in 2009, I was arrested for legally owning guns in the state of New Jersey. And I went through a complete Mickey Mouse trial where a judge forced a jury to find me guilty, even though they didn't want to convict me. They didn't want to. And they're on record for doing that. And eventually the governor released me from prison. I was sentenced to 7 years for legally owning firearms. And I've spent 4 months of that term in prison. I know what it's like to have your name and your reputation dragged through the mud by the government and ambassadors of the state, because it feeds some sort of agenda that they have. It does them good to make sure that you're somehow a bad person, even though you do nothing wrong.
And by the way, I've talked about this a lot in 18 years on air, but 20 years as a liberty activist. I see it in different papers every couple days without looking, where they're arresting people with legal guns and they're going to jail. And the people go, oh, they can't arrest you if it's not illegal. And I'm like, no, explain to people briefly how they ended up, throwing you in jail for legal guns.
Well, in New Jersey, where this happened, they have an outright ban on guns. And the same thing for ammunition. But they have a laundry list of exemptions that make possession of firearms legal. And one of those exemptions is transporting from one house to another. Now, the problem with that is that you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So you're guilty of the crime of possessing firearms until you spend thousands of dollars on a lawyer, you force the prosecutor to take it to trial, and you have to refuse plea deals. And by the time you get to trial, you spend thousands of dollars, and you have to prove that you meet an exemption. They don't have to prove that you did anything wrong. They don't have to prove that there's a victim. They don't have to prove that there's violence.
How long did you serve in jail as a political prisoner? I know the case became a national news story.
I was sentenced to 7 years with a 3-year mandatory minimum, and I spent 4 months.
And then I guess there was enough political uproar, they were able to get you out of the gulag?
They were, but it hasn't been enough for me to see my son again. It's been 4 years since a family court judge decided that fathers who lawfully own firearms are a danger to their children, and I haven't seen my son in 4 years because of that judge's decision.
And this country's so free that you went to jail for legal guns on record, it became a national news story, and then you try to go publish on a system made for people's political activism, and then they ban you. It's just a gauntlet of tyranny. And now the TSA, the story's still on drudgereport.com on the left-hand side. This needs to become a national story where they have announcements at the TSA that if you laugh at us, we're going to arrest you. We're such a free country that if you laugh at the North Korean commissars, you disappear into a black hole. Stay there, sir. I want to come back and get some final comments from Brian Aitken. Straight ahead, banned by Kickstarter.com, but they haven't stopped him. His book is going to come out, whether these authoritarian scumbags like it or not. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, dirtbags. All right, folks. Alex Jones here, back live for the first 25 minutes or so of the next hour, and I'm going to open the phones up for your take on all the news that's taking place. The World War II vets storming the memorials, going to the White House with the barriers, being attacked by the police, the Democratic media calling them racist. Now I actually have the news articles here. We've already gone over those. The missing nukes, now that all these top commanders are getting removed, and Marine Corps generals and the head of all nuclear forces, and AP said that Obama didn't want it known. I mean, this is unprecedented. It looks like coup d'etat stuff going on with nuclear blackmail that's out of the chain of command. Because remember, the globalists can only do what they can get good people in government. Most military people are good men and women. In fact, some of the best people out there. Most of your FBI agents are not consciously criminal. Even most of your ATF are not consciously criminal. They just all believe in what they're doing. And so they're not going to ship a nuke somewhere under tight chain of command to blow something up and then blame it on somebody. Anyways, I'm going to get into that in the next hour. The system has to lose some or redirect some that are under COG and then stage something. And that's what this fits into. This is really serious. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. Briefly, we went out and researched the very best dash cams, and they're hidden dash cams that fit over your rearview mirror that are HD, comes with an 8 gigabyte memory card. This is way more inexpensive than any other competitor because I'm very competitive, as you know. And you can rotate it around and get shots for wildlife, out-of-control drivers, road rage, bureaucrats, police, whatever the case is. We have the HD car camera system at InfoWarsStore.com, and your purchase supports the broadcast. We have the best gravity-fed filters out there, the Pro 1 system that cuts out the fluoride, the glyphosates, all of it, at the very lowest price with the promo code WATER, 10% off the already lowest price at InfoWarsStore.com. If you go to InfoWarsLife.com, that will redirect you right to the subpage, InfoWarsLife.com, to InfoWarsStore.com to find the nascent iodine. And folks, we've compared to the other competitors, it tastes horrible. It's not the real nascent atomic iodine. The Dr. Group and others break down at InfoWarsLife.com in the video there, the amazing things that it's on record doing. And I just absolutely love it. It gives me so much energy. It's on record for what it does for the thyroid. InfoWarsLife.com to learn more. InfoWarsLife.com, or see the video that breaks down some of the facts at InfoWarsLife.com. What is Survival Shield? Well, it's the most amazing form of iodine that I've researched and that I've chosen for my family, InfoWarsLife.com. Brian Aitken, I appreciate you coming on, banned by Kickstarter.com. We'll get you back on the Nightly News in the next few weeks to talk about your story in depth. But in the minute or two we've got left, other points you'd like to add about all you've been through as a political prisoner. Have you left New Jersey, or are you still there?
I haven't spent a single night in New Jersey since December 20th, 2010, when the governor let me out.
Wow. So, I mean, that's the answer. Exodus, New Jersey, Exodus, California. I mean, it's just that they're not free countries.
And it's not to say that I'm not still fighting there. I'm taking my case. The New Jersey Supreme Court, we petitioned them 16 months ago, and they decided that they didn't want to hear the last point in my case, even though it affects hundreds of thousands of people that live in New Jersey. So part of the project at bannedbykickstarter.com is funding my petition to the United States Supreme Court to get them to hear it.
Well, Brian Aitken, what you're definitely doing is fighting tyranny and fighting them in the info war. They've tried to stop your First Amendment, but you've continued to fight. And let me guess, you're never going to stop now.
It's just who we are, Alex.
And I hope you get to see your son again. Wow, what a wonderful country with these eugenics courts. We didn't have them until 100 years ago. They're not even real courts. They are.
The goal is custody by Christmas. That's what I'm going for. It's been too long.
Wow. All right. Former political prisoner still has his son removed from him by the criminal state. Thank you so much, Brian. Find out more at bannedbykickstarter.com. Thank you.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Yeah, land of the free, home of the brave. Brian Aitken was just on with us, and legal guns in New Jersey, but they said that didn't matter. They took him to jail, 7 years in jail, spent 4 months. Governor released him because of an outcry. Then he tries to publish a book about it. Kickstarter blocks it. State's had his kid for all these years. That's just how America operates. It's so wonderfully free. Let's talk to Kim in Michigan. Remember, if you're a hardworking, gun-owning, non-person, I mean, a person with no criminal record, non-criminal, you're gone. You're dead. I mean, politically, they're coming after you because they're a criminal group. Kim in Michigan, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, this is Jim.
Hey, you're on the air worldwide. How may I serve you today?
Yes, I want to thank you for being a good guy to the world. I also want to bring up a point about the nuclear going from one coast to the other and going missing. My question is, have you linked the 3/22/12 interview you did with Lyndon LaRue about how he warned us that the nukes were going to be deployed some way?
You know, I don't remember the full interview, but I do remember Lyndon LaRouche, or I guess Lyndon Lared, I guess what that means in French, on the show. We should get him back on, talking about nukes and things like that. Specifically, what did he say?
He warned us that if we elected Obama back into office, that he guaranteed that there would be a nuclear incident on the shores of our great land.
Yeah, what was the date on that? See, folks, we cover so much incredible stuff here, I can't even keep track of it.
It's March 22nd, 2012. It was just before the elections.
All right, we'll have our listeners, I'm sure, look into that and put it up on YouTube, and then we'll cover it. Very, very bizarre. We should get Lyndon LaRouche on. That's a guy who has real sources at the highest level still. We should get him on and find out what he thinks about this. Thank you so much for the call, Kim. All right, let's talk to Brendan in Wisconsin. You're on the air, sir.
Hey, Alex. I had a videographer working with me, and we were shooting a short promo for Michael J. Murphy's next documentary on chemtrails and geoengineering. And the videographer is a really nice guy. He's come around to some of the subject matter on Infowars.com. And he said, well, but, you know, that part about where he was on with Pierce, and he said, well, it's kind of racist to say that most of the murders are committed by gang members. And I said, in the interest of time, let's talk about that later because we got to get this done.
Well, no. Knowing the statistic that it's gang related, Hispanic gangs, black gangs, white gangs, crime related, people shooting each other, that's a fact. And I did quote the FBI statistics. And no, sir, knowing facts is racist. Vets with their arms and legs blown off protesting the memorials being shut down are now racist according to the Democratic Party. See, that trumps everything. You just say racist. So I tell your friend, good job. He's obviously right. I'm a very bad man.
Absolutely. And a point made by a friend of mine that I hosted in Madison named Gilad Oxman, an award-winning jazz musician and author. And he said, PCism is now a condition of the human condition, a part of the human condition that basically breaks down your thought process, just like a computer virus, and you see the spinning color wheel, and you can't.
Oh yeah, no. They now use it with anything they disagree with. My wife was having dinner with family, and some cousins were there, and some other folks, and my wife's a Christian, and one of them said, I'm an atheist, and Christianity I think is racist. Well, they said, I think it's racist that Hobby Lobby is closed on Sunday. And it's like, what does that do with race? And they're like, doesn't matter. It's racist. It's like a little power word. Racist. And, of course, the socioeconomic controllers, the psych warfare chiefs, know it's all a big joke. I'm not in the business of thanking and groveling to other talk show hosts, but I'm also not in the business of being in competition with other talk show hosts who are covering liberty issues and constitutional issues. But Michael Savage consistently will cover things that the other big supposed freedom-oriented talk show hosts will not touch. Time and time again. I agree with him more than any of them put together, really. He just continually gets the deep angle on things. And last Friday, he covered a story by Anthony Gucciardi from StoryLeak.com, and then we carried his articles at PrisonPlanet.com and Infowars.com. Dealing with our report from Dyess Air Force Base of missing nuclear warheads loaded on trucks, not properly signed for, well, not signed for, period, taken off the base. And I've already covered that ad nauseum. But listening to Savage 16 minutes from his show Friday that's up on Infowars.com, he crystallized it. It's not even about the reports of the missing nukes. It's that it's unprecedented for the president to hire to fire the #1 and #2 commanders of all the nuclear forces, and that then the AP was told, don't cover this. And this had to be leaked. I mean, normally if a top general got fired, it'd be a national news story, and you'd be told why. This is leaked that they've been fired, and it turns out fired back when our story broke. It's definitely connected. And I've been here trying to break down the different angles of it, but I mean, Savage just really crystallizes it that there's like a coup d'etat going on, and it's Obama running it. And you got Lindsey Graham saying South Carolina will be nuked. The night we release the info, we release it in the afternoon. That night he comes out and gives a speech. And now we learned 2 weeks after that the day we broke this, they fired the #2 nuke commander, the admiral, and now they fired the #1 Air Force general over all the nukes. And then they fired 2 top Marine Corps generals over the weekend, and they fired more than 10 top people after Benghazi. I mean, they are purging things. I mean, and if you've studied history, folks, this is what corrupt groups do when they really are taking over. Because, again, they need to sell the country on torture, on secret arrest, on spying, on, oh, the police state's for Al-Qaeda, and then they tell us, oh, it's for the American people now. And so they're busy putting all their people in. They need to get their people in because the average person in the government is not evil, folks. They're just compartmentalized and are given a false reason they're doing what they're doing. That's why they morally can't have us out explaining what's going on, because then people in the system get it and get outside their compartmentalization. And that's why I'm so concerned, because I've never seen a confluence of so many out-of-control things happening and government more out of control and more corruption being gotten away with, from Benghazi Gate to Fast and Furious to the IRS Gate and the NSA Gate and the general corruption, the federalization of police, and the Homeland Security buying $2 million worth of targets of little kids. for no hesitation shooting and openly training to and the Army manual saying George Washington's bad. I mean, it's Twilight Zone. It is Twilight Zone. And a Fort Hood document. You guys print that. Knight covered it on Thursday. The Fort Hood memo. We called it. It's official internal memo, restricted, not classified, saying you don't have a Second Amendment, don't have guns if you are in the military. Basically, just don't take your guns off base. Don't go do it. You know, it just basically says or you'll be arrested. Of course, they don't have that legally, that authority, but it doesn't matter. We've got the fella coming up after the break after I take some calls who got arrested walking with a son out in the middle of nowhere outside Temple, a combat veteran, current officer in the military, what is in the Army. He's been on before. He's now going to trial. And it's just you come to realization with the government really at the top is run by bad guys now. They're consciously bad. They don't just want control. They got a score to settle with free marketers, with conservatives, with libertarians, with gun owners, with veterans, with constitutionalists. In all their manuals, they say we're the enemy and they're going to have a war with us, and they mean to have it. And I just want to warn the police and military, and I mean, I'm not warning you in some threatening way. I don't want this to happen. You're very expendable in this. And if they start this civil war, nuking something and blaming it on us, or blowing something up, the Pentagon's drilling to fight the Tea Party on record, that's Forbes and Washington Times and AP, after we broke it, of course. Just look it up. Pentagon training to fight Tea Party. They see that as their main enemy, real Americans. I want to try to explain something to you folks in the government. This is not going to be a fun war. You think the Viet Cong were hard to deal with? People aren't going to wait in the woods for you. I love how in all the movies the militia fights in the woods and stuff, or fights, you know, hiding out in the mountains. There'll be a lot of folks that run there who want to be left alone. But you're going to deal with a lot of people. Once all this really starts, here's the headline, how the U.S. military would crush a Tea Party rebellion. There's not going to be orders from headquarters. There's not going to be cells to stop. There's not going to be groups. You pull a Patriot over, lights out. You set a checkpoint up. Somebody rolls up to it who's 50-something years old, doesn't care what happens to them, sick of it all. Lights out for everybody. And they're going to start going to bars you're in. They're going to start coming after you. These are trained killers. You start a fight with them, they're going to come after you everywhere you're at, and they're going to wipe you out. And I don't say that with a feeling of pleasure. They're going to wipe us out too, folks. The Patriot leadership will be the first they come after. And I want to explain something to everybody here. They plan on us all killing each other. It's called problem, reaction, solution, full spectrum dominance, just like they get Shiites and Sunnis to kill each other. Military, police, you're smart enough. You know how stuff works. You're smarter than the general public on average. You know how this stuff works. You're not stupid. You do not want this civil war. I don't want it. I want prosperity. I want stability. I want freedom. I want a future. The globalists aren't going to let us have that because politically, and I'm getting goosebumps right now, we're starting to win and take America back. They're not going to let us peacefully fix things. They're going to start a fight with us because they think long-term shutting the country down, starving everybody out, having a civil war will be so horrible that 2-3 years into it, they'll be able to mop up resistance and take over. But you are totally expendable, and they're planning on removing the old military and police establishment in this war. Now, I've war gamed it, figured it out, and then gone and researched and found the globalists saying it themselves. Let me tell you, that's really creepy when you know so much because you're so immersed in something. You know their plan, and then go find it with them saying exactly what you've already envisioned. That's criminology right there. With military science and research, and Stuart Rhodes and all of his people concur, this is the plan. Okay? Now, there's got to be a way to stop this. I do not, believe me, if the Civil War starts and I hear about thousands of dead cops in military, I'm not going to be happy. I would have failed. But here's the deal. We're not going to FEMA camps. You're not getting our wives and kids. You understand? And I mean, you sign on to the New World Order Army and come marching down the road, just like at Lexington Concord. They said, men, we didn't come here looking for a fight, but if they want one, they're going to get one. Don't shoot unless you're fired upon, but we're not turning our guns in. And it all kicked off right there. And I'm here to tell you, folks, we're there again. And that's why I am I've never felt like this in my life. I feel completely nasty. It's just a dirtiness. Of just oh, no, no, no. The only time I felt like this is when somebody I really love has terminal cancer and you go see them in the hospital and they look like a skeleton. And you know you're going to lose them. But it's one thing to lose old people. It's another thing to lose a whole country. And I know a lot of you have roots in this country. It's especially painful when you got long roots, deep roots. It's just so sad to see what they've done to us. They've really wrecked us good. Just look what they've done to us. Look what they've turned us into. Look at how evil we are. And they're going to have their big commie takeover now. They're going to come after everybody. They really are. This is it. This is it, folks. These people are going to try this if they think they can. They've definitely got nukes outside of the control chain. They're definitely holding the Congress hostage. You know, I mean, that's what I really think's going on here. Let's go to Gunfighter in California. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, first-time caller. Only been listening to you for 6 to 9 months.
Welcome. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Turned on by a friend of mine, and he had a couple of decals made up for us, bumper stickers, and we got them on the back windows of our truck. It says, if you aren't PO'd, you're not paying attention. Infowars.com.
That's
My
a great...
sweetie and I both listen to you, and every time we talk to somebody on the phone, like when we pay a credit card bill or somebody else, or doesn't matter, we tell them about you. We turn them on to you, and I've gotten a lot of good response out of it. I have basically 2 questions to ask you. I know you're a very valuable time.
Oh, no, sir. We appreciate you. What are your questions?
I want to tell you how much we really appreciate having somebody like you and your crew. God, you must have the most fantastic research crew in the world working for you, buddy, because I'll tell you what, they're spot on, and you are too. And we're glad that you're a Christian. We're Christians, and we agree with you 99 and 44, 100%. The problem here is I think you're 100% right when you say Civil War. One of my questions is, when I get done here, you can answer for me, is how long do you think it's going to be before we hit that point? The other question is, how soon do you think we're going to start having banks close down and do to us what Cyprus did? And the thing that I really want to tell you, I think I know who transported your nukes for you. I used to line haul cross-country, coast-to-coast, border-to-border. I worked for the largest trucking company, governmental contractor. At that time, they were called Tri-State Motor Transit out of Joplin, Missouri. They bought out a couple of 3 other companies, and then they changed the name to Trism, and they're still in business. And they don't move anything without paperwork, not even for the government. So there's paperwork on these things that these guys haul them, and I'm pretty sure they're the ones that do it.
Well, thank you. God bless you. God bless you, sir. I'll try to answer your questions. I had the guest on last hour who became a national figure when they put him in jail for a 7-year sentence for legally owning guns in New Jersey. And he hadn't seen his son in 4 years because the state court ruled they don't care if he's been pardoned by the governor. He can't see his son. And I think about how they persecute anybody who's upright and not a criminal. More and more, the government has gone rogue. And C.J. Grisham, of course, is standing up against that. He's a prominent military blogger, founder in Soldier's Perspective, and a decorated war veteran. He's an Army Master Sergeant who, of course, was initially disarmed by members of the Temple Police Department and didn't resist them. And I guess they're going ahead with trying to charge him with stuff. It's going to court. He was out on a hike in the middle of nowhere with his 15-year-old Boy Scout son. And let me tell you, we got a big piece of property out in East Texas. If you now walk down the side of the road from one piece of your property to the other, the cops will pull over there and ask you what you're doing. I mean, this country is in deep trouble. And a lot of folks say, hey, just don't have your guns out in public. Let us shut it down. Well, we wanted to get him on to get an update with the upcoming trial, but also talk about this memo that's restricted, but we got it and we called, and it's Command Policy SJA04. Put out a month ago in September, Department of the Army. It says you don't go out in public with your guns, and basically implies it's illegal to legally have your guns. So they're just banning our guns by fiat. And C.J. Grisham, good to have you back on, fellow evil thought criminal. Good to have you here with us.
Thanks, Al. It's good to be here.
So, I mean, you continue to be, expose this to millions of people. I think your video, last time I checked, it has like 8 million views or something. You can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going from memory, but they still don't care. They're proud of themselves. This is going to trial?
Yeah, they refuse to drop any of the charges. I do still face the interference with public duties charges. And one of the things that we tried to do is we tried to suppress the arrest as an illegal arrest. And what the Temple Police Department and the Bell County prosecutors are alleging is that because I was walking down the right side of the road in violation of the transportation code, they had every right to arrest and disarm me. So we're digging at the bottom of the barrel here as a way of trying to find ways of disarming the populace and really legitimize what it is they're doing. But I don't think they anticipated the kind of fight that I was willing to put up.
Well, I've dealt with the Temple Police, and a lot of them are nice, and actually a lot of my family's from Temple. It's a great old town, but it's some of the police are nice. Others are out of control. I've had them tell us when they had a military checkpoint once on I-35, they were doing, Clinton was doing as a test. That's how long ago this was. It was violation of posse comitatus. I had the Temple Police tell us we weren't allowed to film on the highway from 200 yards away. So they need to learn about the First Amendment as well.
Yeah, and, you know, one of the problems that we have here, I agree with you. There are some very good Temple PD cops. The problem that we have right here is the prosecutors. The prosecutors are the ones that are causing most of the problems. As you know, the police obviously initiate these false arrests. But once they file those charges and the case, it's pretty much out of their hands to do anything. However, what I have a problem with is that so far the officer involved in my arrest, even though we haven't been to trial, it's very easy to prove that he lied on his sworn statements, his sworn affidavits of probable cause, because it's proven not only in my video, but in the dash cam footage that's going to come out this week during the trial, that he blatantly lied. It wasn't even a misrepresentation of the truth. He lied on his sworn statements. He lied to his supervisor. And yet everybody all the way up that chain, from the sergeant on the scene all the way up to the chief of police, nobody had the gumption to, you know, do something about that. And at a minimum, I'm not one of those guys that agrees with paid administrative leave when a cop does something wrong. I think they should be charged and thrown in jail and have to bail out just like everybody else when they're accused of a crime. But, you know, at a bare minimum, he should have been put on administrative leave, if for nothing else than falsifying documents. But then the problem we have is in the prosecutors here. The Bell County prosecutors are the ones that are anti-gun, are the ones that are going after soldiers' rights. They're the ones that are contacting the Army and filing these complaints. This letter that came out from the general, and you know, as an active duty soldier, I'm not going to necessarily directly talk about that.
Yeah, you better not comment on that. You can just talk in general. Stay there, Sergeant. We're going to come right back with our guest, Master Sergeant C.J. Grisham, on the other side, and talk in general about what's happening in the country from the perspective of an active duty military officer, but as a civilian, get his take on things. Back live with C.J. Grisham, very popular blogger, founder of Soldiers Perspective, and we're going to get his take on a lot of issues that are taking place right now. He also is with and is promoting OpenCarryTexas.org, a group that we've been following and covering, Jakari Jackson, David Knight, and myself. We're going to be down there coming up in just a few days now in San Antonio for the Open Carry March. The police chief has said he doesn't care if it's the law that you can open carry a rifle. He's going to arrest people. So we'll be down there, and I'm told the land commissioner may even show up down there. He's saying that he's going to try to enforce the law. Jerry Patterson, we interviewed him last week and aired that here. But let me just say something. If you look at the Homeland Security documents the last 5 years saying George Washington's bad, gun owners are bad, returning veterans are the #1 threat, forget Al-Qaeda now. It's the veterans. Because we have foreign globalist interests like the IMF, the Communist Chinese, and others, the Saudi Arabians particularly, now dictating our internal policy. This is now mainstream news. It isn't Alex Jone saying this, reading some CFR or Davos report. This is now open. This is how pathetic they think we are. And I know he's an active duty master sergeant, so he can't say a lot about this, but the military is massively awake. You know, I've never been somebody that just grovels at the feet of the military, because I know that can be used as propaganda by the globalists to sell their operations on the backs of the military and their heroism. But I have found the military, especially the Army and the Marines, as the most awake group, period. 50, 60, 70%. Stuart Rhodes will tell you that as well, especially in special warfare, especially in the mid-level non-commissioned officers. The smarter they are, the more they are. We're talking 80%, according to Rhodes, in special warfare. That's exactly what we found. And my issue is there's a reason for 5 years they've been saying returning vets the #1 enemy. Battle of Athens, 1946. They wouldn't let the vets vote. They were cheating things. Boss Hogg up in Tennessee. The vets just took the town back over. Okay? My grandfather came back from World War II. He was involved, ran for office as a Republican, wasn't going to put up. He was involved when civil rights, you name it, in East Texas, folks. That's as south as it gets. Because they had already fought tyranny. They were not going to lay down to corruption. And it was World War II vets that did the civil rights movement. It was the Republicans that did the Civil Rights Act. The Democrats had been the Ku Klux Klan organization. They stopped being racist against blacks and flipped it over to do race politics. And you know I'm not even a Republican, because they've been so globalist and everything. But the point is, the Republican grassroots ideology of liberty, that idea, the Republican Party platform of Texas, sounds like something the John Birch Society wrote. That's good stuff, just the leadership doesn't follow it. We could take the Republican Party over, is my point. That's why they're demonizing the veterans. I'm going to shut up. I got you on here, CJ, to talk about your trial coming up, the big deal in San Antonio, the date on that. We're going to give folks all the details on that. It's just a few days away. While time creeps up on us, looks like I guess I'll be down there broadcasting live. It's going to be quite a circus. But the point is, what do you make of the demonization of veterans? And then now the Department of the Army that the general put out here, that the local government is now, I guess, commanding Fort Hood and telling them, you keep your soldiers even off duty who live outside the base. They're not allowed to basically have a Second Amendment. I mean, I'm reading this. They're implying here, I read it last week, that the Second Amendment's illegal. I know you can't speak to this, but you can speak to what Temple's trying to do. But before we go there, what do you make of what I just said about the bizarro world? Our veterans are the ones we can't trust. I mean, this sounds like what an enemy occupier would say.
Yeah, well, let me correct one thing. I will tell you that the letter does not ban or in any way restrict our right to carry firearms off base.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, I read it last week. It has a quote here where it basically implies you could be arrested.
Yeah, well, and this is what I was talking about prior to the break, is the prosecutors and the local police chiefs around here, they don't like the fact that there are soldiers and civilians that are starting to stand up and exercise their rights. And
that's my point, is they hate veterans because they know you guys led the civil rights movement.
But I will say that and I'm not going to talk about any specific order, but any order that violates my Fourth Amendment, my Fifth Amendment, my Sixth Amendment, Second Amendment, First Amendment rights is an illegal order. There's a standing mentality in this country that when you sign up for the military, you waive your rights, and that's just simply not true. I would not have signed up to join the military if I were going to just throw my rights away. I mean, I fight for the rights of every American, not every other American than myself. And that's something that we've got to understand. I think a lot of people do. There are so many oath keepers in the military that understand that. The problem is that the higher up you get, the only way you're going to get up there is by recognizing what our political leaders want out of leaders. And we don't give up those rights. When I signed up to be a soldier as a private, 19 years ago, I never once signed a piece of paper that said, I'm giving up all my rights and I'm turning my entire life over to the military. I'm a soldier, but I'm a dad first. I'm a citizen first. I'm a Texan first. And, the soldier part of me is, something I do to keep my country safe. And, any order that orders me to give up those rights, in my mind, is an illegal order. And obviously, that's something that each individual soldier has to weigh independently, because obviously, when you stand up for your rights, there is a little bit of backlash that you're going to get, and you have to be willing to stand up. Well,
until about 25 years ago, they gave privates, because I've shown them on air, those little manuals that talked about George Washington and talked about the chain of command and talked about not following illegal orders and what illegal orders were, and that it was your duty to not follow illegal orders. I don't think that even gets taught anymore.
It doesn't. I know when I first joined, you briefly heard about it. I think it was starting to get phased out. But I'll tell you right now, Alex, you know, you talk to soldiers today, and with this whole issue of what's going on with me, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've heard from not only officers, but some senior NCOs about, you know, my equal pay grade that say, you know, well, if you had just been more kind or just given him your gun when he asked for it, or, you know, and that's the kind of mentality that is just outright wrong. I mean, if somebody walks into your house and says, hey, I'm going to let this platoon here stay in your house, are you going to give up your Third Amendment rights and say, yeah, you know, it's better just to say yes? No. So why would we do that with our Second Amendment, our Fourth Amendment? And by telling soldiers that they're required to acquiesce to illegal searches of their papers and effects, which means show me your ID, just because you're obeying the law and carrying a firearm in a legal and safe manner, which is something that we at Open Carry Texas do. We don't just want to carry guns. We're trying to teach people how to do so safely. And
you're trying to bring back American culture of self-defense that Switzerland is using right now.
Absolutely.
They're trying to kill the liberty culture of self-defense, and we're trying to revive it.
And that's what it really is. You know, a right that you don't exercise is a right that's so easily taken away. I mean, look at what's going on around the country right now with this so-called government shutdown and how they're closing the national parks. I mean, we've got a government that's telling us when we can walk through the woods or get on a kayak. It just doesn't make any sense. And I don't know how we've gotten to that point. It's so great to see my fellow veterans and troops and things going down there and putting the government back in its place. And I know that sounds weird coming from a guy who works for the government, but I work for the people. No, we have rogue elements that are out of control, and that is what you're supposed to do when you're in the government, is keep it to the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. That's the country. That's what makes us different. And anybody that deviates from that has to be brought back into line. And it's this laying down and saying, oh, we just have to follow any order we're given. Well, that's the creed of slaves. Yes, and that's what we're seeing in the rise of the warrior cop as well. Is this mentality that they have this ultimate authority over us. And one of the things, now this isn't our goal. I mean, we would love to work with police officers so that we don't have to, you know, beg and fight and scrape for our rights to be recognized. But, you know, by openly carrying firearms, I mean, officers, they come up to me all the time asking, hey, is that thing loaded? Yes, it's loaded. Is yours loaded? Well, yeah. Well, why is yours loaded? Because I'm a police officer. Okay, well, I'm a citizen. What makes you any different than me? There's this mentality that the state, and when I mean the state in a major macro national sense, and a state as in Texas, when the state feels like they have more power than you can have, and it's just a common statement. I mean, he doesn't even think twice about saying, well, I'm a police officer, as if that somehow puts him above me as far as what rights I can exercise.
They want the monopoly of force. We don't want to live in the worst areas of Chicago or New York or D.C. We live here because we want to be free, but the Democrats say they're going to turn the state blue and that they will get our guns and they will bring in enough illegals to get the vote done.
You know, they might turn the state blue. I mean, you know, they could possibly do that. It's done before. Look what happened to Ann Richards. But there's no way they're taking Texas's guns.
I know, but that's their goal. That shows how bold they are.
That is their goal, and I'll tell you, since we started OCT, I mean, the Open Carry Texas organization, we've woken a lot of people up, including the gun grabber groups. And Texas is now in the crosshairs for things like Moms Demand Action and Mayors for Gun Control, or whatever that Bloomberg organization is called. So as we bring over 1,000 patriots to the Alamo, and we draw that line in the sand that, you know, we are not going to accept anyone taking our guns. We're going to do so peacefully. But, you know, it seems, Alex, at some point, we've got to stop allowing ourselves to get arrested. At some point, we've got to stop allowing, you know, our rights to be infringed, and then we fight it in the courts, and start standing up for ourselves, you know, our rights to be infringed, and then we fight it in the courts, and start standing up for ourselves right there at the moment. And I don't think that time's anywhere close, but it's closer than it's ever been in history.
Well, we've got to let the tyrants know we're not backing down. That's the only way we can avert the total takeover we're seeing. Talk about what time people should be there, give people the lay of the land, what's going to be happening, the fact that it's totally legal to have long guns, not handguns, folks, because Texas isn't as free as we thought it was. There's only 5 other states that have laws this anti-gun. Tell folks about that.
Yeah, the event starts on Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Alamo. There's plenty of parking all around the place. Now, what you'll know is San Antonio did have an ordinance against the carrying of loaded firearms within city limits. We have successfully worked. The San Antonio Police Department was very anti-gun. We shamed them into submission. We've had many open carry walks around the city in preparation for this event coming up. The San Antonio Police Department has actually been very respectful of that. They haven't bothered our people. They've come up and had normal conversations. No one's been forced to ID. So 10 o'clock on Saturday at the Alamo, bring your long arms. That means you can lawfully carry a rifle, any shotgun. And you can also, if you want to carry a pistol, if you've got an 1899 or prior handgun, you can carry that openly as well, or a replica as long as it doesn't fire center fire or rimfire ammunition. So we're going to have over 1,000 people so far is what we've got coming down to the city of Alamo, or the city of San Antonio at the Alamo, to basically educate the public and educate law enforcement and our state that we are not going to allow our gun rights to be disrespected. We're not going to allow our rights to be infringed upon.
And this is the equivalent of Charlton Heston in Oklahoma and Alabama going in with black folks and eating at the counter and being there when folks got arrested. Rosa Parks sitting at the front of the bus. If we have this right, but they want to threaten to arrest us because we have it, it shows what tyrants they are. And I guess things have changed since last week, because when we talked to the land commissioner, Jerry Patterson, who's been a great patriot, I've known him for more than 15 years, he said that, well, yeah, they've been threatening to arrest people, the police chief has, but I've explained this is state property, so even if they have a fake ordinance, they can't stop you from having the guns on the state property, and I've given an order to the Daughters Republic of Texas and the state police that are going to be there, reminding them this is legal and lawful. So I mean, I guess since then, the police chief has backed off and stopped acting like Santa Ana?
Well, I don't know if the police chief has backed off, but I know that the beat cops out there, the guys on the bikes, the guys walking around in their patrol cars, they have not been harassing us at all. As a matter of fact, today and this weekend, we were walking all around San Antonio with our rifles, identifying businesses that would allow us to come in with our weapons during the event. And so after the event, if you want to walk around and spend some money and go eat or whatever, just look for a small American flag in the window or the door of that shop, and that will identify them as a gun-friendly, we call them gun-friendly zones.
You know, I was about to say, that's a good idea nationwide. We should start a national movement with, like, a special American flag, maybe where the stars are. Maybe there's George Washington's face or something, and then do business with pro-gun places and use our economy to leverage out the anti-liberty people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, we got an overwhelming response. We almost ran out of flags. I mean, that's how many businesses are very pro-gun in downtown San Antonio.
Oh, yeah, San Antonio is one of the best cities for liberty I've ever seen. I mean, the people there are just absolutely anti-New World Order. Right.
Yeah, and we're not going to have any problems from the police officers. If we do, it's going to be coming from the top. And it's going to be forced, but I guarantee. So
should I bring my M4 or should I bring my Barrett 50? That'll get a little bit heavy carrying that around.
There you go. Bring the Barrett 50. I know I'm going to have my M4 on me, and it's going to be.
Well, I'm not a combat guy like you that's been carrying 75-pound packs around. I get tired carrying that thing 100 yards. That would be a good stunt, though, wouldn't
it? It would be. And if I had one, I'd probably force myself to endure the pain for a little while. But yeah,
go ahead.
We're just trying to, normalize it. Obviously, people don't walk around with Barrett 50 cals. Obviously, they have a very specific purpose, and that's long range targeting. So we're trying to get people comfortable with seeing us carrying normal day-to-day weapons, to show them, the Second Amendment. I've been reading a lot of Supreme Court case law on guns, and the Second Amendment applies to any weapon that's used by the military. That's what's protected under the Second Amendment, and it has nothing to do with hunting or shooting. So we want people to get out there and, not just on Saturday, but hopefully after this weekend coming up, people will go out and walk around in their neighborhoods and walk around in their towns and show that an armed society is a polite society. That that a guy's a criminal. There's a saying from back in Roman times that a sword is just a tool except in the hands of a killer, and that's kind of how we feel about a gun. It's just a tool. It's a self-defense tool, and if the state can defend itself with guns, then the people should be able to defend itself with guns.
Well, I think the kleptocrats that run this country have jumped the shark, shutting down the veterans memorials and the national parks. It shows how out of touch these control freaks are.
Well, it is. And the fact that they think they have the power to do that, that's what really gets me, Alex, is that we have given over the power of the federal government into every aspect of our lives, that when the government shuts down, everyone freaks out as if the world's going to end. That everyone should be questioning that. How is it that everyone's so afraid of a government shutdown that we can't live our lives? We've become way too dependent, and it's time we take it back.
Well, C.J. Grisham, I'm going to see you down there this Saturday at the Alamo, my friend.
Yes, sir. I look forward to it.
Look forward to seeing you in person. Feel like I know you. I've had you on a couple times. God bless your courage and your fight for liberty, sir.
Thank you. The trial starts tomorrow at Bell County.
All right. Give out your private website, your personal website.
Soldiersperspective.us. Soldiersperspective.
Matt and Chris, I'm going to go to you guys here in just a moment, but I want to get to the guy's question before our guest came on, Gunslinger from California. He asked, when will the collapse really accelerate? Our families are already collapsing. Our health is already collapsing. Our culture is already collapsing. And then those of us that don't collapse and hold everything up, we're told how we're bad all day to keep us in a state of guilt, so we'll do whatever the parasitic system says. Most of the welfare people are just victims of the system, a system that's deindustrialized, that's taken their jobs. We need to teach that most of the debt that's out there is not even related to the welfare. The welfare is bad because it makes you dependent. The real welfare is these foreign banks, but I don't know when the collapse is going to accelerate. It could be next week. It could be 5 years from now. But we're definitely moving into a political and economic quadrant of history that it just goes from bad to worse. And that's what I'm really coming to grips with, is that things are really as bad as we said they could be, and they're worse. And people better wake up. But folks don't usually wake up till it gets really bad. And then the system's going to sit there and pose as a savior again and offer more tyranny. Oh, Obamacare didn't work? Well, give us even more socialist health care. Oh, that'll work. It's just, these people, the globalists have no respect for them. Look at the stuff at the Walmart riots and the EBT cards and the weirdo police trying to beat up vets, you know, Korea War vets and stuff. I mean, it's just absolutely shameful. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that these people think they're God. There's a bunch of other news I didn't get to. This is out of WIBW. Shutdown, paychecks for federal prisoners, but not for prison workers. I shouldn't laugh. It's just, many veterans stopped receiving disability checks due to government shutdown, so now they've begun that, but the federal prisoners get their checks. And more is coming out now about how there is identity theft in Obamacare. It's just designed to destroy the country because the globalists are trying to take the nation down. They hate America. They hate our freedom. They hate the good part of America. America's never been perfect, but it's been heads above all the other countries because it really had some basic private property rights. And that is something the establishment can't deal with. Briefly, this broadcast is also listener-supported, not supported with taxpayer money like MSNBC or NPR and others. You didn't know MSNBC got stimulus money? Yeah, it does. We're supported by selling great products in the free market, the best non-GMO, non-hybrid, open-pollinated seeds in the InfoWars Seed Center and InfoWarsStore.com, the best spectrum of super high-quality water filters at the lowest prices from ProPure on down. It's all there at InfoWarsStore.com. The magazine to wake people up, the books, the films, the InfoWars apparel to meet like-minded liberty lovers. There's just hundreds and hundreds of great items, and also at InfoWarsStore.com and InfoWarsLife.com. You can find the best nascent atomic iodine out there for the thyroid and for all the radiation that's out there. You can go see all the medical info and details and breakdown on Survival Shield at InfoWarsLife.com. and why the system doesn't want you to know about pure, clean, non-GMO-based iodine. People say, well, iodine's not GMO. Yeah, a lot of the bases it's in are. This is glycerin-based, and I'm telling you, the difference between this, I dare you to try other so-called approved nascent iodine for supplement use. Try it. It tastes like the most horrible stuff you ever tasted. Like, compared to this tastes great. Amazing. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll-free 888-253-3139er. 888-253-3139. They can answer all your questions there as well. We sold out of this last week. We got more in. It's available right now. Overdrive coming up. We're going to go to Frank and others straight ahead. Back in just 1 minute in the fourth hour of Overdrive. Infowars.com/show to find the free video feed.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Here's some of the news up on Infowars.com. Girls threatened with hate crime charges for complaining about transgender bathroom harassment. Boys in the bathroom saying they're now allowed to be in there. And the school told them, your rights as girls with privacy is trumped by these guys. Folks, I'm not attacking people that are transgender or whatever, like Bradley Manning. I mean, come on. But, I mean, I've been in, I worked at the TV studio, public access, and worked there. I did my show there for many years. And the very famous transgender Leslie would come in there with his girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, and do drugs in the bathroom and vomit all over the walls and everything. And they go in the men's bathroom, the women's bathroom. And, I mean, it's just, it was disgusting. And not because the guy had long hair and wore dressed like a woman. He was a horrible person. And they all celebrate him in Austin. And it's just like, they finally threw him out because of all of it. And it wasn't at the super liberal access TV because they were transgendered. He actually called himself a transvestite. Yes, there's a difference, I've been told. The point is that he was the most disgusting person I've ever had to be around. And then I got an office I didn't know was next door to where he lived. I had to be around that for 5 years. I could write a book about Leslie Cochran, the real Leslie. It was just horrific. It was horrific. He was obviously completely mentally ill, and I feel sorry for him. But there, I got to go in even more overdrive because I promised to go to these calls. I'll be going to the next segment now. I'm having Leslie Cochran flashbacks. Let me just stop right there. Let's just stop right there. Let's go to Frank in Michigan. You're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Hey, I want to say something really quick. I know earlier you were pretty frustrated and getting pretty emotional about what's going on right now in the world. And
yeah, no, I'm genuinely the most freaked out I've ever been. I am genuinely seeing all the nightmares come true. We're totally accurate. It's all right. And I'm not going, hey, I'm right. I'm like, oh, my gosh. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
I do, and I'll tell you what, I'm a family man. I know you are too, and I think that's the root of it. And, you know, it freaks me out just as much as you because I have a family too. I have 2 daughters and a wife, and, you know, I just want to live my life, and I think you do too, and I think that's the root of it, you know.
Yeah, and watching the domestication of America. I mean, watching us go under the control of this blob, this blob. That's what the government's like. The blob. It's just, and I just know it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, but you know, I want to tell you something, and hopefully this helps you a little bit. I'm calling from Michigan. You're in Texas.
Yes, sir.
So how awesome is that? You know, you're touching a guy that's, you know, you don't know, but I'm listening, and I'll tell you what. There are many people I know here they're listening to. So your word's out, and it's growing. And I want you to keep that faith.
Now, God bless you, and I appreciate that. And look, I'm not trying to demoralize people. I should get up here and be more positive, and I usually am. It's just that I'm 100% honest on air about where I stand. There's no teleprompter. There's no talking points. It's almost like a hallucination how bad the government is, and that we're at this weird paradox where there's the old good parts of America and the new good parts of America are still operating, and everything in between, and there's just all this craziness, this unaccountability, where people in government can get away with anything now at the highest levels. That's the madness of it. And history shows you give people total power, they go nuts. I mean, you give them total control, they will go crazy. And I think that's where it is. So I'm sorry if I've been really bummed out. I personally also get very freaked out about missing nuclear weapons. And then suddenly all the top nuke generals start getting fired and all this other stuff's going on. And to know this is a real story. I mean, I want that source to be wrong. I don't want to be in the middle of this. I want to be a coward. I almost didn't go with that story because I knew how dangerous it was, and I couldn't help it. Here's what I don't like. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like the fact that I can't sell out. I'm going to be honest. I just cannot. And then I realize where it's all headed. I don't know. We're going to come back with more calls. Stay there. Stay there. Walmart shelves were clean during food stamp panic. It was like a tornado had come through. The video's up on DrudgeReport.com. And what's still up on DrudgeReport.com, I've never seen Drudge do this, what's still up from last Friday, unless it just went down during the break, is they have the TSA loudspeakers threatens travelers with arrest for joking about security. And I would guess Drudge has that up there that long. Usually our stories are like half a day. That's the biggest news site in the world. The biggest driver of traffic, hands down, in the world, is because that's a big deal, folks. That they say if you joke, we're going to arrest you. There's no law saying that. And it just shows these are total authoritarians. That's what I was just getting at. And by saying I can't sell out, I couldn't sell out if I consciously wanted to, because I cannot consciously do bad things to people that don't have it coming to them. I can't sit there and look at dumbed-down people and then feed on them because they're stupid. But then I realized the globalists organize big groups of dumb people in to basically pull people like me down. So I'm just sitting here going, what do I do? The general public is a bunch of immoral scum on average. The elitists are absolute total scum beyond anything imaginable. All of these groups together, pressure from below and above, famously, and this has happened throughout history, are attacking those of us that work hard and those of us that try to be good people. And then there's no selling out I can do because the system is so crazy. The worst of the worst run it, and it's just megalomaniacal. And so that's what I'm saying. It's like there's no way out of this thing. And I wouldn't sell out if I could. My point is there is no selling out. That's the big con game that so many followers of evil don't get, is that you destroy yourself in the process. And this system is going down. This system is a fraud. And so if I sounded down today, I apologize. I mean, we had Tosh Plumley. By the way, is Tosh Plumley coming back on? Have we contacted him? He's on tomorrow, and then he talks to Fox News, and then they edit down everything he said, and he is a famous whistleblower, and he exposed Benghazi here on the air, and now he's getting threatened, and his last post was they're out to kill him. And you think I like dropping that bomb on people? It's like, and now the nuke story is like 50 times worse than that, and then, again, I'm trying to explain this to people. It isn't thrilling. I don't sit here and try to break big stories to be an egomaniac. I mean, maybe 15 years ago, it was 90% because I cared about liberty and wanted to fight the New World Order. 10% wanted to be somebody. Now, it's very strange to have none of the be somebody anymore. None of the narcissism anymore. I need that narcissism. It's natural to have some of it psychologically. It's natural to have. I don't have it anymore. All I have is the horror of just knowing the New World Order and knowing how they operate and watching them game everybody and cheat everybody. And I'm like, it's like watching a bunch of blind lemmings being fed into the mouth of a giant snake. And the lemmings are kissing the snake and thanking it for what it does. And it's just like a slaughterhouse. I don't know how to describe it. And then all I want is what the guy said earlier, as a family man. There's nothing better than innocence. There's nothing better than goodness. There's nothing better than security. There's nothing better than, it's like, man, the whole world is a threat to my son and my daughters. The whole world is a stinking, rat-infested scumball. And it's getting worse by the minute, and it's declared war on anything that isn't degenerate like it is. And I'm sick of it. And I'll tell you, that's another thing. Used to, I had a corrupt side, like everybody does. You know, you like stuff that you shouldn't. You know, I just don't even have that anymore. It's just like, I don't know. It's almost like my psyche is imploding as it expands. Like me, the fleshful person, is imploding and disappearing. And then my spiritual side And the side that understands things is getting bigger. But then I think there's a passage in the Bible that with great knowledge comes great sorrow, or with knowledge comes sorrow. What's the exact quote? Bible verse about knowledge and sorrow? The beginning of knowledge is sorrow. And now I read the Bible, it's like, oh, I didn't get this when I was a teenager. I didn't get this in Sunday school. I didn't get, now it's like I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally get this. I totally get this. I totally get that. I totally, and it's just, it's bizarre. It's, and I don't mean to sit there and talk about myself all day. This is my journey, and I know you're having your own journey. And now corruption is even worse when I see it. Not because I'm on some high and mighty plane. I realize how bad it is. It's not like I'm even like a Pharisee, because I know how wicked I am. I am just frustrated by it. I'm frustrated that I can't get rid of it myself, because humanity has such incredible heights as our potential. We have unbelievable, unlimited potential, made in the image of the creator of the universe. But then we just seem to just plumb the depths of the nastiest, stupidest, most foolish levels ever seen. For with much wisdom is much grief, and he that haveth increase in knowledge increaseth sorrow. Ecclesiastes 1:18. That's it. People that say they want consciousness and that they want to be awake and they want to know the secrets. I mean, yes, it's much better than being a slave, but it's the knowledge of good and evil, and it just intensifies and gets more and more extreme. And I think it's the quickening. Everybody's freaked out right now because the whole world's lining up for some big stuff to happen. And I think that's really what's going on here. Let's go ahead and talk to Alan in Delaware. Thanks for holding her on the air.
Thanks for having me again, Alex. It's good to be here. I'm, as you know, a native of Washington, D.C. in the Beltway, living in Delaware now as a refugee, basically. Just got back from there, and I have to tell you, folks, that the place is shut down like a gigantic armored truck. You come in on New York Avenue, you got 37 cranes. They're building down there like Grant took Richmond. They are literally just absolutely turning that place into a gigantic FEMA Region 3 base. UN is everywhere. We are in the 100-year shift of the paradigm shift of an ESCO. And, Alex, I've surmised, I've thought about this, you know, I've theorized and hypothesized, and my summary is this. These nukes are being moved in order to basically maybe dejacket and rejacket, because we know that their prime agenda is Syria and Iran. Am I right?
So they'll rejacket them with isotopes known to be in the Iranian program to frame them?
You are exactly right on. You're channeling the spirit of all of your murdered and slaughtered descendants, as I am. This is how we roll, my friend. We're not stupid. You've got to be able to read their posture. Do not pay attention to their words, their writings, and the bogus crap you see on the media. Take it for what it is. Get into the belly of the beast. Find out what's in their intestines and rip it out at its core and go north to the heart. You will find that what you just said, Alex, is 1,000% spot on.
Well, I don't know if it's, listen, all I know is there's missing nuclear weapons from our source that believes it, and now they're firing all the nuke generals and a bunch of other generals, and there's something going on, and I don't like it, and I've never been this upset. And I really, psychoanalyzing here on air, why I feel so upset, it's just the realization that we really have evil people that mean us harm in control who are building up for a major offensive, and you can feel it, you can see it, you can intellectualize it, it's all there, and it's a feeling of I need to do more. My family. And then at the core, there's a sickness in that I really should be getting my family out of here, and I know I've committed. I know I'm putting it all here. I'm going to go right through it, and I know that's what's got to be done. We'll beat these people in the end. It's just that they have such a bloodlust for us, folks. They're going to pull something big. They are hell-bent on bringing us down. I mean, you look at the globalists, you look at the senators, John McCain, you look at Michelle Obama, how demonic that woman is. Look in her eyes. I mean, she looks like just looks like a crazed wild woman. You look at the other globalists, you look at the head of the IMF, that lady, Legrand, looks totally evil and crazed, but then their actions are what's crazed. And they want to dominate us. They want to smash us. They really want people to be poor and to kill prosperity. They really want to cut development off in Africa and Asia and starve those people to death. I mean, they really are murderous scum. They really are hell for us. We're going to skip this network break. I'm going to go to the bottom of the hour live here. Thank you, Alan. Who's up next in Georgia? Nadine, you're on the air. Go ahead.
How are you doing, Alex?
Oh, I'm just freaked out. It's just...
God bless you for what you do. You wake up a lot of people.
Well, I'm trying, brother. What's on your mind today?
Alex, if you look at the history of this country, I mean, honestly speaking, we have created psychological slaves, constantly going on welfare over the ages. This all goes back to the last liberal president we had. That's where the spikes started. And constantly going up. Why they are doing this? They are making people slaves. That's what they are doing. So these people don't have a voice. They can't stand up against the system. You're talking about starving the people all around the world. They're starving people. They're going to starve people in this country. Sooner or later.
I agree. No, their plan is they see us as a... You go ahead.
You were just talking about, I'm sorry to cut you off, missing nukes. Last president we had 4 missing nukes. Where are they going?
They were going to the Middle East.
It's over and over and over has proved to be the most irresponsible government when it comes to the nuclear bombs. Why? I think personally, I mean, I will give you my point of view on it. I think all these missing nukes are going to the black market and they are selling it. They are setting this world up for the Third World War.
Well, that's what they've always done. That's what Plumlee talks about. It's on record. They arm both sides. Like they're arming, in fact, there's evidence they're even arming Assad and Al-Qaeda to kill each other. And the goal is just murder people.
Just murder people, not only that. If you look at the government shutdown, 14 days, what has been done? Nothing. Alex, as I am from a third world country, I'm an immigrant in this country, and I've been living in this country for about some time now, which is constituted about 19 years. From my personal experience, they are setting this country up.
Oh, yeah, no. They're openly arming and preparing for a war with the people. And folks better understand, going along with the system means nothing. They're preparing for total war against America down the road in their geopolitical plan. When do you think that'll be?
Our government is preparing itself for a war against Americans. That's what they're going to do. On the 17th, we will default. By 18th, he will invoke emergency and he will probably impose martial law on our asses.
Yeah, I thought Obama would just grab a bunch of power. I mean, I know he makes a lot of decisions, but they're decisions he's been authorized to make. And I know I say he's a puppet, but Bill Clinton wasn't really a puppet. He was actually calling shots. They put him in there because he would do what they said, but he made a lot of this, fine-tuning decisions. That's on record. Nixon was running things to a great extent. And more I realize Obama and his controllers, they really are calling the shots, and they really do hate Christians especially, and or anybody they don't control. God bless you. I appreciate your call. God help us, man. I tell you, it's just pure evil. From the eugenics level, at the highest level of my research into their activities, they see the human population as a plague hurting the earth, and they're in emergency war against us. But then you study them individually, they're just really dark, wicked people. And all I can tell the average person out there that works for the system or whatever, if I was you, I wouldn't be going along with the New World Order. We don't want this civil war. We don't want all this horrible stuff to happen. It's all coming up to debt default, global crisis, total meltdown, EBT cards not melting, not working. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out scenarios where everything doesn't go to hell in a handbasket, and it's really getting hard to do. And they politically need crises so they can pose as the saviors. And so they want all these crises because they think the public is too dumb to understand all this. And I guess they're just working too hard. They're poisoned from the food, poisoned from the GMO. But Congress has a very low approval rating, lowest in history. Government has a low approval rating. So I say the public's dumb. They're not really dumb. They just feel powerless, I guess. And then the government bureaucrat types really do act like they're hunting us. And it's always the bureaucratic ticketing class that is designed to target the general public for petty stuff. The nanny state, that's the nasty ones that really look at you with hatred because they're pathetic people who don't have high IQs on average. They're hired because they have low IQs. And they're sent out there to basically henpick everybody, I guess, to get us ready for the new conversion over to the pure slave state. I mean, I guess that's really it. And I have a lot of empathy because I realize at an atomic level, at a gut level, that what happens to other people ends up coming back on me. You can quantify altruism and feeling people's concern and their pain biologically so that you have a good society. You don't want to hurt other people because you empathize with them. That's what's happening at a biological level. You can scientifically quantify it. And the globalists say, well, we've scientifically forgotten that. We're going to kill everybody for your own good because you guys are a bunch of dumb animals. So we're going to try to make you as dumb as we can to make this a self-fulfilling prophecy. And for me, that's an ultimate sin. And I'll tell the establishment something. If you studied universal law, you've studied natural law, common sense, you're not going to screw everybody and end up inheriting the universe, the kingdom of heaven. I mean, you think you're going to do all this horrible stuff and that you're not going to be punished for it? Even if you don't believe in God, there are natural laws. You set up these giant meat grinders. You set up this weird freak system you set up. You try to make people as demonic and bad as you can. They're going to destroy you, and you're going to destroy yourself. It is going to be craziness. And I think that's why I'm so freaked out, is that I've come to grips with the fact that it's madness. The establishment is insane. Let's go ahead and talk to Matt in South Carolina. Matt, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hey, Mr. Jones. I wanted to ask you about that thing that you said at the beginning of the show. You said something about the power grid going down and them staging a drill in November. Do you have any information on what specific day they're going to do that on?
It starts November 1st. I got a bunch of other drills going on. It's been in the New York Times. We've reported on it a lot. Just type in FEMA Region 3 power drill or emergency drill, and it's huge. And they're basically using the drill as the cover for something big. There's never been anything like this. I don't know if something big is going to happen during it, but they're using it as a COG drill, continuity of government drill, and of infrastructure drill to test federalization of the grid. It's the NERC Grid EX2 Grid Security Exercise 2013. North American Electric Reliability Corporation. That's just a part of the overall FEMA operation.
The reason that popped into my brain so hard is that Art Bell earlier this week said that the government was going to announce something huge on November 13th. So I don't know if that has anything to do with that.
I mean, look, it looks like they're maneuvering us towards a 1933 default on purpose to then put us under IMF World Bank rule, which they've already done privately. And, yeah, we're just being prepared to be maneuvered into total bankruptcy like Greece.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. And I don't know if that's going to happen. But you mix missing nukes into this and huge parts of the command structure being fired. And then here's the big one. AP being told that they weren't supposed to talk about this info. And they had to have it leaked to them. They don't want you to know why they're removing the nuke generals. I mean, that right there is just, has coup written all over it. And then just like the SWAT team said they were ordered to stand down at the Navy Yard shooting, we received that info first, we reported on it, and they got a hold of BBC and they reported on it, of all people. Our sources try to go to other people too. Tosh Plumlee tried to go to Fox News. They finally ran it and then stabbed him in the back. I guess I'm the only person crazy enough to break this stuff, and I guess Michael Savage is too. So hats off to the people that are willing to talk about stuff like this. I mean, it's just... Chris in Maine, last caller I have time for. Sorry to the others. Go ahead.
Hi, how you doing, Alex?
Go ahead.
I have a couple things I wanted to talk about, if it's okay. On the nukes issue there, I'm just curious on why the mainstream media isn't talking about, it's been 9 top military officials fired here. I'm thinking to myself...
It's more than that. It's in the... It's like 30-something generals and admirals the last 2 years. And, right. and then it's the 2 top nuke guys and now the 2 top... In the last week, it's like 5 generals.
And, if we were talking like North Korea, everybody talks about he's trying to get military close to him over there and all that, so they're loyal to him.
Oh, yeah. When Kim Jong-un removes 1 general, it's international news. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, I'm saying to myself, well, is he trying to get these people, more aligned to him, meaning Obama?
Oh, yeah, that's what he said about Kerry, the head nuke commander, the major general. He said, I don't have trust in you.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's very scary stuff going on. Another thing I wanted to talk about was this shutdown on the Obamacare issue. My wife is very, very, very ill. And just in the last year, I bring her to the hospital when she's sick, and the doctors don't admit her for things they've always admitted her.
Oh, no. That's Obamacare now. You pay double, you don't get care. But he loves us, and sir, you're a racist that you don't like it. I hope your wife gets better. Nightly News coming up, 7 o'clock.